Chapter 1313, Miss Yen, 3, It doesn't matter, it's good to have some fun before going into closed-door cultivation. The demon said indifferently. After that, the two of them took out their bracelets and went to the courtyard. At this moment, the courtyard was in a mess. The originally beautiful flowers in the garden had all become broken flowers and wilted willows. The petals had all fallen to the ground, and the flower branches drooped their heads, as if they were telling the story of the violence they had been subjected to. There was a beautiful lady in red standing in the courtyard, directing her subordinates to smash things. The housekeeper was constantly trying to stop them, but he was pushed to the ground by his wolf-like subordinates without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, Leng Ruox's heart was filled with anger. Stop! Leng Ruox's voice rang in everyone's ears. Even though it was not loud, everyone could hear her clearly. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. They could not help but stop what they were doing. When the steward saw Leng Ruoxue, he crawled up from the ground in a sorry state and ran to Leng Ruox's side. Young miss, the butler was about to explain but was interrupted by Leng Ruoxue. You don't need to say anything, I have my own plans. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she turned to look at the lady in red. The lady in red was extremely beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament. It was a pity that she had an arrogant look on her face. Leng Ruoxue hated this kind of lady the most. In addition, this lady had ordered people to destroy the fallen swallow residence that she was currently staying in. Hence, her impression of this lady was extremely bad. When the butler heard Leng Ruox's words, he didn't know why, but he felt nervous. Actually, he wanted to tell Leng Ruoxue about the woman's identity, but the young miss didn't let him finish his sentence. He felt a little uneasy. Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the city lord's mansion? Leng Ruoxue ignored the butler's dilemma and questioned him coldly with her beautiful eyes half closed. We're the city lord's mansion's honored guests, who are you? The lady in red glanced at Leng Ruoxue, her beautiful eyes burning with jealousy. She had always thought highly of her own beauty, and now that she had seen the devastatingly beautiful Leng Ruoxue, her heart immediately felt unbalanced. How could there be such a beautiful woman in this world? Her heart was instantly filled with dissatisfaction, and when she saw the evildoer beside Leng Ruoxue from the corner of her eyes, the sour water in her heart kept pouring out. Damn it! Why did all the benefits go to this annoying woman? Not only was he more beautiful than her, but the man beside her was also so handsome and outstanding. Such an outstanding man should be by her side, right? Was she the only one who was worthy of that man? Thinking of this, she deliberately flirted with the demon. Unfortunately, the demon didn't even look at her, which made her even more embarrassed and angry. Since you're a guest, you should be polite. What do you mean by ordering people to smash the host's things? Is this the way your family taught you? Leng Ruoxue laughed and mocked. Please read on /myboxn0vl.com, how audacious. How dare you say that about me? Do you know who I am? Didn't I just order people to smash some junk? If it wasn't for this damn old man who insisted on stopping me and not letting me stay here, would this young lady need to go through so much trouble? The red-clothed woman said in an extremely overbearing manner, as if it was natural for her to order people to smash things and that it was the other person's fault for stopping her. Junk? Do you know how much your so-called junk is worth? I'm afraid you can't afford it even if you sell yourself. Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly. She was truly a spoiled young miss. How could she say such ignorant words? It must be known that there were many flowers and plants in the fallen swallow residence that she had moved out of the bracelet last time and ordered people to plant them. Many of them were good things that money couldn't buy. Now, they had been smashed to pieces by this willful young miss, so it was impossible for her not to be angry. You really deserve to die. You actually said I can't compare to these pieces of trash, Just you wait, I won't let you off. The lady in red was enraged. She took out the whip from her waist and lashed it at Leng Ruoxue. However, in mid-air, the whip was split into two by a black divine energy and fell to the ground. The lady in red was even more annoyed when she saw this. She glared at Leng Ruoxue with fire in her eyes and said, "Humph. What kind of skill is it to hide behind a man? Let's have a one-on-one fight if you have the ability." She knew that her whip had been slapped away by the man beside Leng Ruoxue, which made her even more jealous. That was why her tone was filled with jealousy. Shouldn't a woman hide behind her man and be protected by him? Leng Ruoxue smiled and said matter-of-factly, "Humph. He's your man." The woman in red pointed at the evildoer and questioned him with jealousy. "Yes, I am." Leng Ruoxue chuckled, deliberately showing a trace of pride on her face. "Don't be too pleased with yourself, he won't be one very soon." The red-clothed woman said, unwilling to show weakness. "Why not? He's my man in life and my ghost in death. Whether it's life or death, they can only belong to me. As for some random person, they can forget about it." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. In her heart, she could not help but sigh. It wasn't a good thing for her man to be too outstanding. At least, there were always people who overestimated themselves and wanted to spy on him. It was really annoying. "What if you die first?" The red-robed woman asked calmly. "You mean you want to kill me?" Leng Ruoxue said. "Humph. You're the one who's looking for death." The woman in red didn't deny it. She really wanted to kill this eyesore. "All right. I'm just an eyesore, but are you sure you can kill me?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a light smile. She had seen many arrogant women before, but this was the first time she had met someone who wanted to kill her so blatantly. "Humph. How would you know if you don't try? All of you, go and kill this woman." The woman in red was determined. Since the other party had already guessed her thoughts, there was no need for her to hide it anymore. She might as well get rid of this woman in 1 or 2. In this way, the man would be easy to capture. Leng Ruoxue would never let go of a woman who wanted to kill her and had evil intentions at the same time. Even though she did not know the woman's identity, she was definitely going to die today no matter who she was. Chapter 13-14, Miss Yen, 4. After the two of them had made up their minds, the battle began. The housekeeper was so anxious that he was running around in circles. Woo! The woman in red was not to be trifled with, but his young lady was even more so. However, he could not let these two people really fight, because no matter which one of them was injured, the consequences would be very serious. Miss Yen, we're all on the same side. Let's talk things out. Please don't fight. The butler cried out in panic but was ignored by Leng Ruoxue. The red-robed woman said disdainfully, "Humph. Who was on her side? Our Yen clan isn't a place that just anyone can get close to." The Yen family? Leng Ruoxue smiled and thought to herself, could this woman be related to Yen Kun? Otherwise, why would they call themselves the Yen family? However, this relative of Yen Kun was too arrogant and domineering. Not only was he rude, but he also wanted to kill her. Humph. No matter who Miss Yen was to Yen Kun, she would not let her go. Of course. Our Yen family isn't something you can afford to offend, so I advise you to surrender without putting up a fight. Perhaps this young miss will spare your life if I'm in a good mood. The red-robed woman said confidently, the arrogance on her beautiful face growing more and more intense. You will spare my life? Unfortunately, I won't let you off for the sake of the Yen family. Leng Ruoxue said emotionlessly. You're looking for death. You can't blame me. The red-robed lady was enraged after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. After she finished speaking, she continued to order her subordinates to attack. Leng Ruoxue looked at the other party's subordinates, who were eyeing her covetously, and chuckled as she moved Shuang out of her bracelet. The appearance of the huge fox gave everyone a shock. Its tail, which was constantly wagging, brought up a strong wind, blowing on everyone's faces, making them feel a burning pain. Seeing the huge snow fox, the red-dressed lattice subordinates started to cower. Putting aside the fact that the fox's strength was above theirs, even if it was not as strong as them, they were not willing to fight against a large beast. Just look at its huge claws, it could crush them into meat paste in an instant. However, they did not dare to disobey the young Miss orders. Who asked their young Miss method of torture to make people tremble with fear just by thinking about it? Little Ying. I'll leave these small fries to you. Len Ruoxua laughed evilly. And, these guys are too few, not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Shuang said in dissatisfaction. I'll make do with it. Len Ruoxua rolled her eyes at Snow Shadow, who was still trying to act innocent even after getting an advantage. If it wasn't for the fact that this fellow had been clamoring to come out and move around, she wouldn't have moved it out of the bracelet at all. All right then. The Snow Shadow nodded its big head in grievance, and with a slight disdain, it used its tail to roll up the person closest to it and threw him into the air. When the person fell, it caught him and continued to throw. After repeating this a few times, the unlucky guy who was thrown around like a ball by Shuang directly fainted with white foam coming out of his mouth. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, calm. Seeing this, Shuang directly sat on the person's body. Then, he looked at the others provocatively. Who's going first? Shuang said calmly. When the red-clothed woman's subordinates heard Shui Ying's words, none of them dared to make a sound. They all took a step back in tacit understanding so that they would not be used as a ball by the fox. They did not want to be like their previous companion, who was unconscious and still sat on like a meat cushion. Ugly freak, since no one is going to answer me, then you do it. Shuang said as he turned to the red-clothed woman with an evil smile. Ugly? Who are you talking about? The red-clothed woman thought she had heard wrong and couldn't help but ask. Other than you, is there anyone else who is so ugly? Shuang stared at the red-robed lady with a serious look on his face. As he looked at her, he kept shaking his big head. Damn it! How dare you call me an ugly monster? What kind of taste do you have? The lady in red was furious. She had always been proud of her looks. After suffering a blow from Len Ruoxua, she was now called an ugly monster by a fox. How could she tolerate this? Immediately, she threw the divine power in her hand towards Shuang. The Snow Shadow dodged the attack calmly. Then, it stretched out its huge claws and effortlessly caught the red-robed woman in its hands. As it looked at the struggling red-robed woman, the Snow Shadow's clear eyes emitted a mocking light. With your little strength, you still dare to call for a fight? You really don't know your place. Chapter 13-15, The Dark Clan, 1. After Shuang finished speaking, he unceremoniously threw the red-robed lady in his hand high up into the air. Stop! Beast! You're so bold! With a furious roar, a figure as fast as lightning jumped up and caught the falling woman in red. After the two of them landed on the ground, the woman in red was so frightened that she started crying loudly. The middle-aged man who was holding the woman in red also raised his head in anger and glared at the big snow-white fox. Evil creature! How dare you hurt my daughter? The middle-aged man was furious. If he hadn't happened to come back and see this scene, he was afraid that his daughter would have died here. Qiyu brought this upon himself, she can't blame anyone else. The Snow Shadow said disapprovingly, and its nonchalant attitude made the middle-aged man even more furious. What a good Qiyu. Humph. My daughter has always been well-behaved and sensible, but you've bullied her like this. I won't let you off. The middle-aged man said fiercely. After hearing the middle-aged man's words, Len Ruoxua was speechless. It seemed like it was indeed better for the child to come from her own family. Such an unruly, willful, and reckless woman was actually obedient and sensible in her father's eyes? She really wanted to ask, your daughter is always shouting to kill at the drop of a hat. How is she obedient and sensible? At this moment, Yan Kun, who was behind the middle-aged man, had also rushed over. He nodded his head slightly when he saw Len Ruoxua. Then, he walked to the front of the middle-aged man and asked with some confusion, Brother Yan, what happened? Why did you leave in such a hurry? Humph. If I hadn't come in time, my daughter would have lost her life here. City Lord Yen, are they your people? You must give me an explanation for this matter. Otherwise, there's no need for our cooperation to continue. The middle-aged man snorted and threatened. His words made Yen Kun unhappy, but he did not show any dissatisfaction. He just asked, Brother Yen, I've been with you the whole time and I don't know what happened. How do you want me to explain it to you? They are your people, right? This evil beast almost killed my daughter. I want you to kill this fox now and avenge my daughter. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with ferocity as he spoke viciously. Yen Kun looked at Leng Ruoxue and did not know how to continue. Putting aside the cause of the incident, he could not kill the fox in front of him. Moreover, he could not kill the fox. The fox was fierce. And it was his Miss S. Even if he had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to make a move. Besides, he knew his young miss quite well. He knew that she would not take the initiative to cause trouble, so it must be Miss Yen who had annoyed his young miss, and that was why she had been taught a lesson. After thinking about it a few times, he could roughly guess what had happened. Brother Yen, you know that I've just returned, so you have to give me some time to understand what happened. Don't worry, I'll give you an explanation. Yen Kun said after thinking for a while. You are reading on myboxn0vel.com, what else do you know? If I hadn't come in time, my daughter would not be in this world now. Isn't this clear enough? I'm only asking you to kill a beast, and you're already making so many excuses. Do you not want to work with our Yen clan anymore? The middle-aged man could not help but threaten Yen Kun again when he saw that Yen Kun had not made a move. Brother Yen, although you're here on behalf of the Yen clan, I'm afraid you can't make the decision to cooperate with me. If you really don't want to work with our northern Yen city, then please come and talk to me personally, Yen family head. Yen Kun, who had been in a pleasant mood all this time, was also enraged when he heard the middle-aged man's words. The cooperation between him and the Yen clan had always been on an equal footing, especially after he had recognized Leng Ruoxue as his master. Yanbei City rose with the tide. Although not many people knew that Yanbei City belonged to Leng Ruoxue, the Ning clan and Qi clan of the 8 great divine regions were on good terms with Yanbei City, not to mention the other clans. It was precisely because he had been working with the Yen clan for so many years that the Yen clan was able to suppress the other cities and continue to work with him. However, from the looks of it now, this old master Yen clearly did not know his own identity. He thought that Yanbei City was still the same as before. Although he had only been here for 2 days, he had displayed his superior status everywhere. Not only did he order him around, but he was also ordering him around. This was really preposterous. Who do you think you are, to trouble my father with a small city like Yanbei City? The middle-aged man's face was full of disdain. Before he came, his father had repeatedly urged him to treat Yen Kun as an equal, and he had readily agreed. However, deep down, he still looked down on Yen Kun. Now that such a thing had happened and Yen Kun did not follow his orders, he naturally did not want to be nice to Yen Kun. I'm the city lord of northern Yen City, and you're just the young master of the Yen clan. Yen Kun sneered. If it wasn't for the old man from the Yen family, he wouldn't even give this kind of hedonistic son a second glance. Yen Kun. What do you mean by that? The middle-aged man was furious when he heard Yen Kun's words. He hated it when people called him the first young master of the Yen family because he wanted to be the head of the family. However, his father had not decided on a candidate for the future head of the family. As a result, he had been called the first young master for decades. Therefore, he would turn hostile whenever he heard the words, first young master. Exactly what I said. I heard that the reason why Master Yen hasn't appointed a young master yet is because his son is not up to standard. So, he's waiting for his grandson to grow up. Yen Kun didn't forget to rub salt on the young master's wound. Among the many sons of the Yen family's master, only this young master had a daughter. The others all had sons. What he meant was that he would not be the future young master's father. Yen Kun. I think you're tired of living. The young master of the Yen family roared in anger. If he could, he would kill this hateful Yen Kun right now. However, he could not do so because this was someone else's territory. No matter how arrogant he would not dare to attack his master in someone else's territory. That was no different from seeking death. Who said that? I haven't lived long enough. And I'll definitely live longer than you. Yen Kun said nonchalantly. If it wasn't for the Yen family head, he really didn't want to deal with this clown. However, with this incident, he was afraid that their cooperation with the Yen family would be ruined. In that case, he didn't have any other concerns. Chapter 13:16, The Dark Clan, 2, Oh, really? Let's wait and see. The middle-aged man threw out these harsh words and wanted to leave with the red-robed lady in his arms. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by Leng Ruoxue. Wait! Leng Ruoxue suddenly said. The middle-aged man looked at his daughter who was still in a daze in his arms. He turned his head and glanced at Leng Ruoxue. He spoke with slight displeasure, City Lord Yen, how can your maid be so rude? How dare you block my way? How does your city lord's mansion discipline you? When the middle-aged man saw that Leng Ruoxue was dressed in ordinary clothes, he assumed that she was a maidservant from the city lord's estate. However, what surprised him was that the maidservant from the city lord's estate was so beautiful. No wonder his daughter had a conflict with them here. It must have been because of this woman. When he thought of this, he made up his mind to ask for this outrageously beautiful maidservant so that his daughter could deal with her as she pleased. Previously, his attention was all on his daughter and that big fox. In addition, half of Leng Ruoxue's body was hidden behind that devilish man, so he did not notice Leng Ruoxue's existence. Now that Leng Ruoxue had suddenly spoken, he realized why his daughter had come into conflict with the people from the city lord's estate. Naturally, he had to avenge his daughter. A maidservant. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, cold sweat started to drip down Yen Kun's forehead. He couldn't help but think to himself, young Master Yen, what kind of taste do you have? Could it be that she was a maidservant if she wasn't well-dressed? That's my master. However, after sneaking a glance at Leng Ruoxue and seeing that she did not have much of a reaction, Yen Kun did not continue the conversation. Otherwise, wouldn't it be his fault if he were to spoil the young lad's plans? Although the middle-aged man's words made Leng Ruoxue speechless, she didn't feel the need to explain so much to a passerby. Since that man thought she was a maidservant, then she would just let him think so. Seeing that Yen Kun and the maidservant did not refute, the middle-aged man felt that he had guessed correctly and continued, City Lord Yen, if I'm not wrong, today's incident should be caused by this maidservant. So, as long as you let me deal with this maidservant, I will let bygones be bygones. The middle-aged man thought that he was very generous. After all, he only asked Yen Kun to give the maidservant to him. He thought that Yen Kun would not be reluctant to do so. As for the big fox, he would deal with it in the future when he had the chance. He knew very well that if he wanted both, Yen Kun would definitely not agree, and that woman was obviously an eyesore to his daughter. Let bygones be bygones. You wish. Yen Kun cursed in his heart, but he put on a grateful expression and said, Young Master Yen, you're so generous. However, I can't hand this maidservant to you. I don't have that right. You don't have the right? Could it be that she's not a maidservant of your residence? The Yen clan's first master said with a puzzled expression. Indeed not. Yen Kun sighed and said helplessly, Woo, what did the miss mean by giving him that look? Since she's not, I'll take her away. The middle-aged man said impolitely. Just as Yen Kun was about to say no, he was interrupted by Leng Ruoxue. All right. I'll go with you, but I have to bring my man and beastie. Leng Ruoxue requested. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL.com, you're just a prisoner, you don't have the right to make any requests. However, I'll allow you to bring them along. After the middle-aged man gave a warning, he changed the topic and agreed. He couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. This time, it really didn't take any effort at all. Not only did he take away the maidservant, but he also took away the big fox who had almost killed his daughter. After he finished speaking, the man held on to his daughter and walked arrogantly to the front. The Yen clan's subordinates were assigned by him to watch over Leng Ruoxue, the demon, and the snow-white fox as they followed behind. Yen Kun was a little dumbfounded as he watched his young miss leave with the Yen family's master. He felt depressed. Woo! What the hell is this? Why would the young miss take the initiative to leave with the Yen clan's first master? Based on his understanding of his young miss, shouldn't she order him to keep the Yen family's old master and the others behind, and then send someone to the Yen residence to get them to come and take the opportunity to ask for a huge sum of compensation? Why was it different from what he had imagined? City Lord, what do we do now? Seeing his master being taken away, the butler was extremely depressed. Woo! What was the young miss playing at? The butler's fragile little heart could not take the shock. You're asking me, but who should I ask? By the way, tell me, what's going on? Yen Kun asked in a bad mood. City Lord. It's like this, the steward reported the matter in detail to Yen Kun. After listening to it, Yen Kun thought for a while and said, Butler, send someone to the main residence to inform them that Miss has something to do at the last minute and won't be going back for the time being. Oh. All right. City Lord, what about the young miss? That young master of the Yen family wouldn't bully our miss, right? The butler said worriedly. Who knows who's the bully? When have you ever seen the young miss being bullied? Yen Kun glared and roared. If he was not the city lord, he would also want to follow the young lady to watch the show. Unfortunately, he could not leave northern Yen City so easily. After the butler had sent people to the Nightmare Forest, Ziyu and Yuqing had brought Bai Xian and his wife over. In the living room of the city lord's mansion, the moon eye glared at Yen Kun and roared, that damned Yen Kun. Why didn't you stop them? That bullshit Master Yen and Miss Yen actually wanted to kill my master, I won't let them off. Great Aunt Yuqing, it's the young miss who wants to leave with her. Do you think I can stop her? Yen Kun said with an aggrieved expression. Woo, the people around Master are so fierce. He was so scared. Who told you to stop young miss? I told you to stop that old Master Yen. You should have left them in Yenbei City so that we could have a good show to watch. Now that they've left, where are we going to watch the show? By the way, where's their base? Let's just go straight to their nest. Yuqing said after thinking. Ah. After Yen Kun heard Yuqing's words, his forehead was full of black lines, and he couldn't help but feel disgusted. So you're not afraid that the young miss will be in danger, but just want to watch the show? Lair. If the Yen clan knew that you called their territory that way, they would definitely vomit blood in anger. After all, they were humans and not beasts. Who would like to hear their own home being called a nest? However, he only dared to think about it in his heart. He didn't dare to say it out loud in front of the violent mother beast, or he would be the one in trouble. Chapter 13-17, The Dark Clan, 3 Moon Eye. Calm down. Ziyu reminded him with a helpless smile. Then, he turned to Yen Kun with a smile and said, City Lord Yen, is that young Master Yen your relative? Of course not. Although our surnames are all Yen, we're not exactly the same. Other than our many years of working relationship, we're not even close. Yen Kun quickly explained to avoid any misunderstanding. That's good. Otherwise, we won't be able to do as we please when we fight. After hearing Yen Kun's words, Ziyu said in relief. Ah. Yen Kun didn't know what to say. It seemed that no one around the miss was easy to deal with. City Lord Yen, what is that Yen family? Yuqing asked anxiously. The Yen clan is nothing. Yen Kun was sweating. This young miss was really good at talking. Yes, I know the Yen family is not a good thing. Yuqing said in agreement. Ah. Yen Kun was depressed. In fact, he didn't mean it that way. Woo, okay. It was a slip of the tongue. Have you heard of the Dark Clan? Yen Kun said after taking a deep breath. Dark Clan? Could it be that the Yen clan is also a dark clan? Ziyu asked with a face full of shock. The Dark Generation could be considered as another power in the divine realm apart from the 8 great divine domains. However, one was in the open while the other was hidden in the dark. Although the members of the Dark Generation rarely walked in the divine world, no one dared to look down on them. Their temperaments were unpredictable and they were temperamental. Furthermore, they would definitely take revenge if there was any. If the Yen clan was really a member of the Dark Generation, then it would be troublesome for the young lady to deal with them. Because the Dark Generation would not stop until one died in order to take revenge. Unless one could kill all of them, they would never stop looking for you. Yes, the Yen clan is one of the dark clans. However, the Yen clan that I know is only a branch. Their main clan is in the God realm. Yen Kun nodded. How do you have business with the Dark Clan? Ziyu frowned and said disapprovingly. The words Dark Clan also represented trouble. Therefore, generally speaking, very few clans were willing to do business with them in the open. Of course, it was hard to say it in the dark. I didn't know that the Yen family was one of the dark families. I only found out when their master was drunk. However, our business was already very close at that time, so it was impossible for me to leave. Thus, my business with the Yen family continued until now. In fact, the Yen family master is a good person, but this young master is a little self-righteous. Yen Kun explained. If it wasn't for the fact that he felt that the Yen family head was a person he could befriend, he wouldn't have tolerated the Yen family's young masters so much. However, after offending his young lady, the Yen family's young master would not be able to live a good life anymore. He just didn't know how the Yen family head would view this matter. Then you should know where the main residence of the Yen family is, right? Ziyu asked with a faint smile. You are reading on MYBIL-XN0VEL.com, yes, I know. Yen Kun nodded. Master Yen had invited him there before. Although it was hard to find, he still remembered it clearly. Tell us the location of the Yen family's main residence. Well, go look for the master. Ziyu said calmly. Right. We're going to find master. Yuqing quickly echoed, her beautiful face full of excitement. Ah. How about? I bring you there. Yen family head should give me some face. Yen Kun probed. No. You have to stay here and look after the house. Ziyu refused without even thinking. He was very clear about Yen Kun's thoughts, but he could not let him leave. Otherwise, wouldn't the northern Yen city be without a leader? AI. All right then. Yen Kun nodded unwillingly. Woo, why was it that he could not join in the fun? Now, he really regretted not stopping the Yen family's eldest young master and his group. After telling Ziyu the location of the Yen residence, he was afraid that they wouldn't be able to find it, so he specially drew a map for them, and then, he reluctantly watched the 4 of them leave. Seeing his city lord's resentful expression, the steward couldn't help but comfort him. Master, don't be sad. They will come back. You don't need to tell me that. Yen Kun said angrily. After he finished speaking, he glared at the housekeeper and turned back to his room to sulk. At the same time, the eldest master of the Yen clan was on his way back to the Yen clan with Leng Ruoxue, 2 men, and a beast. After leaving the city lord's mansion in northern Yen City with Leng Ruoxue and the beast, he was afraid that any delay would bring more trouble and that Yen Kun would stop him. Thus, he left immediately without delay. Originally, they wanted to ride their flying beasts back, but for some reason, after their flying beasts appeared, they all trembled and ran back to the beast's space on their own. They didn't even listen to their master's words. This made the Yen clan's first master extremely vexed, but he couldn't do anything about it, so they could only choose to walk. Even though they were walking, the young master of the Yen clan could not possibly walk on foot. Furthermore, his daughter was still in a state of shock. Hence, he ordered his subordinates to buy a beast carriage for him and his precious daughter to ride on. As for his subordinates, Leng Ruoxue, and the rest, they would naturally have to walk. However, because the beast carriage was expensive and their funds were limited, this subordinate could only buy the cheapest beast carriage for the Yen clan's first master. Because of the price, the beast pulling the carriage naturally could not be too good. Thus, they slowly advanced at the speed of a snail. Shue, are you tired? Let's take a break. Evildoer, who was walking behind the beast-drawn carriage, said to Leng Ruoxue considerately. We've only been gone for a while. I'm not that pampered. Leng Ruoxue laughed, but she couldn't help but complain in her heart. At this rate, when would they be able to reach this guy's house? Or did this guy want to kill her and Shuang outside? Oh. It's not impossible. I'm just worried about you. We haven't walked for so long, I'm afraid you won't be used to it. The demon said affectionately. I know, Leng Ruoxue leaned into the evildoer's embrace, her beautiful face filled with happiness. Chapter 13:18, The Dark Clan, 4, Damn it. Who allowed you to rely on him? Get away from him. At this time, the young lady of the Yen family who had just lifted the curtain of the beast carriage to look outside saw this scene and couldn't help but roar with jealousy. She had just woken up when her father told her that he had brought back the maidservant who had made her angry, along with the stinky fox who had almost killed her and the devilish man who made her drool. When she heard that, she was extremely excited. She couldn't care less about her slightly painful head and wanted to see it with her own eyes. Who knew that she would see this scene? Suddenly, the anger in her heart rose. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at the young lady of the Yen family who was glaring at her through the curtain. Then, she turned her head back to the evildoer. The two of them continued to be sweet to each other as if there was no one else around. They did not take the woman's words seriously at all. Damn it. I'm talking to you. You dare to pretend you can't hear me? The young lady of the Yen family roared in anger. Seeing this, the Yen clan's first master hurriedly consoled, My good daughter, she's just a maidservant. Why are you angry with her? If you don't like her, just kill her. Father. Then I'll kill her now. I don't want to see her again. The young lady of the Yen family said in an overbearing manner. Ling, there are so many people coming and going here. If we were to kill someone here and someone were to meddle in our business, wouldn't that spoil our plans? Moreover, her beast pet almost killed you. Are you willing to let her die so easily? The Yen clan's first master reminded. Actually, he was a little reluctant to let such a beauty give up her life in vain. Who asked him to always have tender feelings for women? Father is right. Well, torture her to death when we get back to the Yen family. Humph. I won't let her have an easy time, and that stinky fox too. Yen Ling said with a vicious expression. Shuang, who was walking beside Leng Ruoxue, saw the fierce look in Miss Yan's eyes and said with a face full of fear, Shue, that woman is trying to get her hands on us. I'm so scared. After he finished speaking, he even intentionally leaned towards Leng Ruoxue's side. However, he was still kicked out by the demon. Why don't you know how to love little animals at all? Shuang crawled back again with tears in his eyes, accusing the evildoer of his atrocious acts in an extremely aggrieved manner. Are you a small animal? The demon glanced at Shui Ying's huge body and said speechlessly. He really couldn't see how this fox was small. When most beasts appeared in their beast form, they would basically mimic it. Only this fellow didn't like it. It always appeared in this form that was almost the same height as its original body. It was clearly doing this on purpose, deliberately trying to give others pressure. Of course I am. Have you ever seen such a cute fox like me? Shuang said arrogantly, and kept throwing charming eyes at the demon, which made the demon feel disgusted. Shuang, are your eyes cramping? Leng Ruoxue said, amused. Ah. Of course not, I'm just throwing seductive eyes at your man. It's a pity that your man doesn't know how to flirt. Shuang grumbled helplessly. He's not interested in male beasts, but if you're in heat, I don't mind you seducing that lady. Leng Ruoxue suggested with an evil smile. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, I'm very sorry. I'm not interested in her. Shuang said with a look of disdain. But she wants to kill us. If you don't make the first move, we'll be the ones to die. Leng Ruoxue reminded. It's my honor to be able to go to the netherworld with you. Shuang said with a smirk, unconcerned. You wish. If you want to go, you should go to the netherworld yourself. Shua can only be with me. The evildoer roared as he suppressed his anger. Shoo. Lower your voice, others will hear you. When Snow Shadow heard the demon's loud voice, he hurriedly dissuaded him. It's too late. Leng Ruoxue looked at the young lady of the Yen family, who had already alighted from the beast carriage, and said with an innocent expression. Aya. A fiend has come, what should we do? Shuang shouted in an exaggerated manner. Stinky fox, who are you calling a fiend? Yen Ling, walked in front of them and asked loudly. Other than you, who else could it be? Shuang rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, this woman's comprehension is terrible. Even a fool could tell that it was her, but she had to confirm it. AI. Stinky fox. How dare you? I won't let you off. When Yen Ling heard Shui Ying's words, she roared in anger. Miss Hong, you've said this many times, right? If you want to kill me, then come. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Shuang said impatiently. Sigh. If it wasn't for the fact that Shua wanted to enter their nest, it wouldn't want to waste its breath on these stupid humans. Who is Miss Hong? Yen Ling was attracted by the words Miss Hong and couldn't help but ask foolishly. You. Snow Shadow said very clearly. Damn it, my surname is not Hong, my surname is Yen. Yen Ling, Yen Ling, was very angry and shouted, fuck. Why did she have to be associated with that woman from the Hong family? One had to know that the one she hated the most was that woman from the Hong family. Who said your surname is Hong? I'm talking about the lady in red. Aren't you wearing red? Snow Shadow said in realization. Damn it. You're playing with me. Yen Ling Air's anger rose again after hearing Shui Ying's words. I'm so wronged. Shui Ying's eyes were filled with tears, and her face was full of grievance. Humph. Just you wait, I'll deal with you when I get home. And you. Stay away from him, you're not allowed to come within 3 meters of him. Yen Ling looked at Leng Ruoxue and warned her. As for the him she was referring to, she was obviously referring to the demon. He's my man. Leng Ruoxue reminded her speechlessly. She had to admit that she had seen many brainless women, but Yen Ling was one of the most outstanding ones. Up until now, no woman had ever ordered her to stay 3 meters away from her man in such a domineering manner. Today, she could be considered to have broadened her horizons. So what? You won't be very soon. Yen Ling said confidently. Then, she worriedly called for the guards and ordered them to guard them closely, not allowing the two of them to get close. The guard agreed. When he saw his miss returning to the beast-drawn carriage, he whispered to Leng Ruoxue, I'm just following orders, so don't blame me. The guards were not stupid. Many of them could tell that the 2 humans and 1 beast that the eldest master had brought back were tough people. Hence, they did not make things difficult for Leng Ruoxue in private. On the contrary, they would take care of her when they could in order to obtain good karma. After all, they were only guards. Sir System dared to offend them, but they did not. Chapter 1319, The Dark Clan, 5, I understand. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. She wouldn't make things difficult for a few errand boys, so she naturally wouldn't listen to Miss Yan's words. After she finished speaking, she took the evildoer's arm, and the guard beside her also opened one eye and closed the other, as if he did not see anything. The beast carriage moved slowly. Seeing that the sky was getting dark and they were in the wilderness, they could only set up a tent and spend the night outside. The guards of the Yen residence were busy, while Ling Ruoxue and the demon found a place to sit down. Shuang lay beside them, her eyes fixed on every movement in the beast carriage. The young lady from the Yen residence had said that she would be staying in the carriage tonight. It didn't know how the father and daughter would distribute the beast carriage, so it was really curious. Not long after, Shuang saw the Yen clan's first master walking down from the beast carriage, clearly intending to leave the beast carriage to his precious daughter. The guards of the Yen clan prepared the food and specially sent some over to Ling Ruoxue and the rest. However, they were all rejected by Ling Ruoxue. "Thank you. We have food." As soon as Ling Ruoxue finished speaking, she took out a steaming hot roast chicken from her bracelet and passed it to Shuang. Then, she took out another one to share with the demon. She had asked Qing Ju to roast these 2 chickens in the medium. Naturally, she had used the chickens that were raised in her bracelet and were full of spiritual energy. Therefore, the meat was exceptionally delicious. Even she, who did not particularly like to eat chicken, could eat a lot of it. When the guard smelled the chicken in Ling Ruoxue's hands, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. They were both chickens, but why did they taste so different? Just look at how fragrant it was. However, he could only drool. At this time, Yen Ling Er's voice rang out from the beast carriage again. "What are you roasting? Let me have a taste." When the guard heard Yen Ling Er's words, he directly gave the roast chicken in his hand to Yen Ling Er. "Shua, do you think that annoying woman will go crazy if she finds out that the fragrance she smelled just now was from our food?" Shuang, who was eating very elegantly, asked curiously. "She won't know. She'll only think arrogantly, why didn't the meat in her mouth smell as good as it did?" Ling Ruoxue said. That makes sense. But, where are we sleeping tonight? You're not really planning to let us sleep in the wild, are you? Shuang looked at Ling Ruoxue and asked with a puzzled expression. They did not have a tent and could not take out the house. "Wu, what should they do? I thought you would be used to sleeping in the wild." After hearing Shui Ying's words, Ling Ruoxue replied as a matter of course, "Didn't Beastie always go with the flow and sleep wherever they encountered? That was in the past. Now, I'm used to sleeping on a bed. If you make me sleep in the wilderness, I won't be able to adapt." Shuang said with an innocent look on his face. Wu. It was no longer a wild fox. Now, it was raised at home, so it had to sleep in a bed. You are reading on myboxn0vel.com, let's set up a tent later and sleep inside. Ling Ruoxue chuckled. Actually, she was just teasing Shuang earlier. Ling Ruoxue, the 2 humans and the beast quickly finished their meal and set up the tent. After greeting the guards who were watching over them, the 2 humans and the beast entered the tent together. Ugh! The guards who saw their actions were so curious that they felt as if a cat was scratching their hearts. 2 people and 1 beast had only set up 1 tent, and all of them had entered. Wasn't it crowded? Never in his dreams would he have thought that the tent was just Ling Ruoxue's smokescreen. They had long since entered the Bengal. Hence, he had done his job and stood guard outside the tent for the entire night, preventing them from sneaking away. The next day, Ling Ruoxue, the 2 of them and the beast walked out of the tent in high spirits. When they saw the guards outside the tent, Ling Ruoxue even showed them some sympathy and concern. "What's wrong? Didn't you sleep well last night?" "Yup." The guard said with a smile, but he couldn't help but complain in his heart. "It would be a wonder if you slept well. I have to guard you, how could I dare to sleep? If he let you run away, young miss would skin him alive. It's really hard to be a guard. I'll talk to your miss and ask her to increase your salary." Ling Ruoxue said with a smile. Don, tea. Please Don, tea. When the guard heard Len Ruoxu's words, he was so frightened that he hurriedly spoke. If this woman were to make such a request to the young lady would definitely think that he was in cahoots with this woman. At that time, he would not have it easy. Hee. Don't be afraid. I was just saying. Your miss won't listen to me. Len Ruoxu laughed evilly. Mmh. The young lady will not listen to anyone. The guard hurriedly nodded. Can we be on our way now? By the way, where is the Yen clan? How long do we have to walk if we keep going this way? Len Ruoxu asked casually. We can go now. It'll probably take us at least half a month to reach the Yen residence. The guard said softly. However, he did not answer Len Ruoxu's question about where the Yen clan was. Oh. Len Ruoxu nodded and thought to herself, looks like the Yen family is quite far from Yenbei City. However, when she arrived at the Yen clan's base camp, she realized that it was not that the Yen clan was far from Yenbei City, but that their speed was simply too slow. After having a simple breakfast, the Yen clan's first master and his party continued on their way. At this moment, Ziyu and the others were also on their way to the Yen clan. After flying for nearly 2 days, the 4 of them finally found the Yen residence. The Yen clan was located in a small mountain to the north of Yenbei City. On the mountainside of the small mountain, there were 2 large characters, Yen City. Seeing these 2 words, Ziyu's forehead was filled with black lines. She thought to herself, as expected of the Dark Clan. He actually knew how to occupy a mountain as a city. It seems that the Yen clan is quite similar to our master in some ways. They both like to live in the mountains. Bai Xian sighed as he looked at the small mountain in front of him. Same, my ass. How can the Yen family be compared to our young miss? Yu Qing said with some anger. Right now, as long as she thought of the Yen family, she would have the urge to fight. Humph. He dared to touch her young miss, he really didn't want to live. Ah. I was wrong. Bai Xian saw that the tigress had gone mad and quickly admitted his mistake. Boo-hoo. He didn't dare to provoke an adult soul-gnawing beast. Wasn't that courting death? Humph. I don't plan on letting this Yen family off, you guys decide for yourselves. The moon I roared furiously. Yu Qing, calm down. We have to see the young lady first before we can make any plans. Don't be impulsive. Ziyu advised helplessly. Okay, let's go then. Yu Qing said while holding back her anger. The 4 of them came to the mountain gate and handed over the invitation that Yen Kun had given them to the city guard. They were then invited into Yen City to wait for the city lord to meet them. In the Yen residence's living room, Ziyu and Bai Xian sat quietly at the side, drinking tea. As for Yu Qing, she was pacing back and forth in frustration. As soul-gnawing beasts, their tempers were naturally explosive. After following the young miss for a few years, her temper had been restrained a lot. However, for some unknown reason, after knowing about the young miss matter this time, her temper had actually gone out of control. Other than wanting to watch the show, she was also anxious to see her young miss, because she could only be by the young miss' side. Only then would she be able to calm down. Miss seemed to have the ability to calm people down, and that feeling made her very comfortable. After waiting for a while, the Yen family's steward brought in a middle-aged man who looked to be in his early 40s. When Ziyu and the others saw the middle-aged man, they all knew that he was not the master of the Yen family. Therefore, no one had any intention of getting up, and they just sat in their chairs. Chapter 1320, The Yen Family's Enemy, 1, Everyone, this is the second master of our family. The butler introduced with a smile. However, Ziyu and the others didn't say anything. Seeing this, Yu Qing sneered, Housekeeper, we want to see your family head, not some second master. Did you misunderstand what we meant? I'm sorry, everyone. The family head has something to attend to, so he sent the second master to receive you. I hope you can forgive him. The butler said with a smile. We have important matters to discuss with your clan head. Are you sure he can't see us now? Or perhaps this second master can make the decision for your Yen clan. Yu Qing sneered. Humph. Did the Yen family take them for fools? What do you mean by something happened to the master? She didn't believe it. He was clearly trying to avoid them. Miss, the master is indeed busy. Why would I lie to you? The butler wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said helplessly, Wu, why is this woman so difficult to deal with? Only you know whether I'm lying or not. Ziyu, since he's so insincere, let's leave. Yu Qing turned her head and said to Ziyu. Yes. Ziyu nodded. The three of them stood up and prepared to walk out of the hall. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by the middle-aged man. I'm sorry, everyone. My father really has something to do and can't leave. Please don't take offense. The middle-aged man said courteously. I wonder when Yen family head will be able to see us. Ziyu asked indifferently. It'll be a few days. Why don't you all stay at my Yen residence for the time being? When my father is done with his work, I'll personally invite you all. The middle-aged man said. That's good too. Ziyu nodded her head in understanding. After that, the middle-aged man instructed the butler to arrange guest rooms for Ziyu and the others. He had intended to arrange for someone to serve them, but they refused. In the guest room, Yu Qing kept walking back and forth. Seeing her appearance, Ziyu couldn't help but laugh. Yu Qing, calm down. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, calm, how can I be calm? We still haven't found the young lattice whereabouts, and that Yen family head is not willing to see us. Yu Qing couldn't help but complain. Nothing will happen to the young lady. As for that Yen family head, he most likely ran into some trouble. Otherwise, with the friendship between Yenbei City and him, he would not refuse to see us. Ziyu calmly analyzed. So what if we have a friendship? Now that the master of the Yen clan has taken away our young lady, and we don't even know if he's dead or alive, can the Yen clan and Yen northern cities still continue their friendship? Yu Qing said unhappily. She didn't care what happened to that Yen family head. In short, it was enough for her to see the young lady. If the young miss lost a single strand of hair, she would definitely destroy the Yen clan. She didn't care what kind of dark clan the Yen clan was. I think Yu Qing's words are very reasonable. That old master from the Yen clan took our young miss away, so young miss will definitely not let him off. Our enmity with the Yen clan is also set in stone. Since that's the case, we don't have to be too polite to the Yen clan. It's better for us to make the first move. Bai Xian said, wishing for the world to be in chaos. Why are you all so violent? I think we should still meet the Yen family head, there might be a good show to watch. Ziyu said with a mysterious look. Ah. What's the meaning of this? Bai Xian's curiosity was aroused. Don't you smell the faint scent of blood in the Yen residence? If I'm not wrong, the reason why Master Yen refuses to see us is probably because he's injured, or something has happened to the Yen family, so that Master Yen can't attend to many things. Don't forget that Yen Kun once said that he has a good relationship with Master Yen. Since they have a good relationship, and we have Yen Kun's notice, even if he doesn't treat us as distinguished guests, he should at least meet us in person. However, he only sent his own son. Doesn't this show that there's a problem? Ziyu said with a faint smile. Now that you've mentioned it, it does seem a little suspicious. Bai Xian lowered his head and pondered for a while. What do we do now? Yu Qing said impatiently. Well, wait, Ziyu said. When he said that he wanted to leave earlier, it was just a pretense. In fact, he also wanted to see the Yen clan's reaction. Since they were now being held back, there was naturally no need to leave so easily. But we still haven't found the young miss. Yu Qing said with a frown. We'll find out when we get the chance. Ziyu reminded. After the housekeeper brought them to the guest room, he left in a hurry. No one knew if he was really in such a hurry or if he was afraid that they would eat people. I'll go out and ask around, Yuqing said, unable to sit still. After saying this, he stood up and left the guest room. Xiang, you should also go and take a look. Ziyu looked at Yuqing's back and said with some worry. All right, he said. Xiang, stood up and left after Yuqing. Ziyu, what should we do? Bai Xian couldn't help but ask. They couldn't just wait here. Just wait patiently. Ziyu said with a smirk, as if she knew what was on Bai Xian's mind. Then let's wait. Bai Xian was helpless. At the same time, in the main courtyard of the Yan residence, the second master of the Yan clan was reporting the situation of the guests to his lord father. Father, is that Yan-kun really that important? Why do we have to accommodate them? The second master of the Yan clan asked in confusion. Based on his temper, if they wanted to leave, they could just leave. However, his father had specifically ordered him to treat them well. This made him very puzzled. Yan-kun and my father have been friends for many years. Their relationship has always been good. In recent years, Yan-kun seemed to have met with some kind of lucky encounter. His momentum has been out of control. The Ning clan, Qi clan, and some other top clans have repeatedly expressed their goodwill to him. Therefore, our Yan clan naturally cannot fall behind. You know the current situation of our Yan clan. We really need allies. Otherwise, the Hong clan alone can force our Yan clan into a desperate situation. Yan family head coughed a few times before he continued. Father, I understand. The Yan clan's second master nodded. Since you understand, you must take good care of them. Remember not to neglect them. Yan family head warned. Yes, but they want to see father. I'm afraid I don't have that kind of weight. The Yan clan's second master said worriedly. Chapter 1321, The Yan family's enemy, 2, calm them down first. When father's injuries are better, I'll naturally go see them. Yan family head sighed. Out of all his sons, his second son was the stabler one. However, his temper was too good. He could not control the old guys in the family at all. That was why he was worried. All right, father. Didn't you send big brother to Yanbei City? Then why did City Lord Yan send them here? The Yan clan's second master voiced out his doubts. He had thought about this question for a while, but he had not been able to come up with a solution. They didn't reveal anything at all? Yan family head asked with a frown. No, they almost left when they saw that you didn't go to see them. Fortunately, I stopped them. After that, I was worried about father's injury, so I asked the butler to take them to the guest room. Second Master Yan explained. Find a chance to sound them out and see what they're here for. Yan family head said after some thought. All right, father. I'll be going out first. The second master of the Yan clan replied, and then turned to leave the main courtyard. In the next few days, the Yan clan's second master kept looking for opportunities to inquire about the purpose of Ziyu and the others' visit. However, Ziyu always changed the topic. Not only did the Yan clan's second master not manage to obtain any useful information from Ziyu and the others, but he had also been tricked into saying a lot of things. This made him feel deeply depressed and helpless. Ziyu had learned from the second master of the Yan clan that his big brother had not returned to the Yan residence yet, so she was at ease and stayed in the Yan residence. She did not ask to see the Yan clan master again. Half a month later, Leng Ruoxue and the rest followed the Yan clan's eldest master on a long journey and finally arrived at the city closest to Yan City. Of course, the reason why she knew that they were about to reach the Yan residence was because she had heard it from a guard. Thinking back on her journey to the Yan residence, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She realized that the Yan residence was actually not that far from Yanbei City. If they were to take a flying beast, they would be able to reach in 2 days at most. Even if they were to use a beast carriage, they should have reached in at least 8 to 10 days. However, They had walked for more than half a month. The reason for such a long journey was definitely due to the efforts of the Yen father and daughter. The city they were in was called Hong City, and it was owned by the Hong family. After the Yen father and daughter arrived in Hucheng, the first thing they did was to look for a hotel. After dinner, the father and daughter went to bed early. After all, they had been on the road for more than half a month and had not rested well. They had always been pampered and spoiled, and they were so tired that they were about to vomit blood. Now that they were almost home, they naturally had to have a good night's rest. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, Calm Leng Ruoxue, the evildoer, and Shuang were locked up in two separate guest rooms under Yen Ling Heir's orders. However, this did not affect the evildoer's free access to the rooms. Leng Ruoxue and Shuang smiled at each other as they looked at the demon who walked in openly. Shuang couldn't help but tease him, "You seem to have entered the wrong room, right? This is my room and Shui Heir's room. You're the one who entered the wrong room, go back to your nest." The demon said in an unpleasant tone. Yes, he was very angry. That damned woman actually dared to lock Shui up with another man. This was preposterous. Oh. It should be a male beast. But no matter if it was a man or a male beast, they were all male. He would never allow that to happen. Freak. Leng Ruoxue called out softly. Then, with a thought, she brought the demon and Shuang into the bracelet to rest. However, they were woken up by Qingju in the middle of the night. "Qingju, what's the matter?" Leng Ruoxue opened her eyes and asked in confusion. "Sister, something has happened outside. You three prisoners should be out by now," Qingju said excitedly. "Ah. What happened?" Leng Ruoxue was very curious. Could it be that Yen Ling had come to check on their room? That's impossible, right? Yen Ling slept like a dead pig every night, so how could she care about her? She couldn't help but make wild guesses. "Sister, you'll know when you get out. It's very fun." Hee hee. Qingju smirked and disappeared. Leng Ruoxue felt helpless when she saw how mysterious Green Vessel was acting. However, she still obediently left the bracelet with the evildoer and Shuang. As soon as she left the room, the door was kicked open. Then, a group of men in gray ran in. They were all holding weapons and had fierce looks on their faces. After seeing these people, Leng Ruoxue understood that these people were not from the Yen clan. Could it be that they had encountered the Yen clan's enemy? AI. He really didn't know if they were lucky or unlucky. However, the unlucky ones would definitely not be the three of them. Take the three of them as well. The leader of the gray-robed men instructed his subordinates. Yes. The subordinate replied hurriedly. After he finished speaking, he went forward to capture Leng Ruoxue and the rest. "Well, go on our own. I don't need you to catch me," Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Then, she pulled the evildoer along and led Shuang out of the room. The gray-robed men had never seen such a cooperative prisoner before. They were stunned for a moment before they regained their senses and followed behind Leng Ruoxue and her beast. After leaving the inn, Leng Ruoxue saw the Yen family's father and daughter being tied up. The guards of the Yen family were treated slightly better than the father and daughter. At least they weren't tied up. "Master Yen, Miss Yen, what's wrong with you?" Leng Ruoxue chuckled and asked, pretending not to know anything. "Humph. Don't play dumb, did you find these people? Our Yen clan will not let you off." When Yen Ling saw Leng Ruoxue, she roared in anger. One must know that she had never thought that she would be in such a sorry state one day. And now, the woman she wanted to get rid of had seen her in such a state. This was really intolerable. "Miss Yen, are you out of your mind? Don't you see that these people have also caught us? If you really want to find out who's responsible, shouldn't it be us who's been implicated by you?" Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly. "That's right. You evil people not only want to kill us, but now you've been caught by your enemies and you're even dragging us down. Shuang said with a look of dissatisfaction. Stinky fox, what nonsense are you talking about? How could we have any enemies? Yan Ling roared in anger. Chapter 1322, The Yan Family's Enemy, 3, If he's not your enemy, is he ours? Shuang rolled his eyes and said with a look of disdain. All of you shut up. Don't quarrel. The leader of the gray-robed men said with a headache. It seemed that the two people and one beast they had caught in the end were not in cahoots with the Yan clan. What should he do? The clan head had only ordered them to capture the Yan clan, so should they release them? He was conflicted. I didn't argue with her. If you can use a rag to block this woman's mouth, I'll be very grateful. Snow Shadow reminded. That makes sense. The leader of the men in gray nodded in agreement, then gave a look to his subordinate. However, the subordinate said with some difficulty, Captain, I don't have any rags with me. You guys don't have any either. The leader of the men in gray asked the others, but they all shook their heads. Then what do we do? The leader of the gray-clothed men was in a difficult position. Obviously, he also thought that Yan Ling, was a little noisy and wanted to block her mouth. What's so difficult about that? Can't you just take off one of your stinky socks and use it to stuff her mouth? Shuang suggested with a smirk. When the leader of the men in gray heard Shui Ying's words, he didn't have time to say anything before the angry Yan Ling, spoke first, Stinky fox. Stupid fox. I won't let you off. What are you arguing about? Shut up. The leader of the gray-robed men said impatiently. Although this woman and his second young miss didn't like each other, their temper was the same. They were both so annoying. Then, he said to the subordinate from before, take off your socks and stuff her mouth. Captain, my socks don't stink. The man said, feeling wronged. The leader of the men in gray was speechless after hearing his subordinate's words. Shuang, on the other hand, laughed evilly and said, then you can take off whatever stinky clothes you want. As long as she can't speak, it's fine. Then, you guys wait. After the subordinate finished speaking, he immediately ran off. Not long after, he returned with a piece of cloth in his hand. The subordinate took the piece of black cloth that was emitting a strange smell and stuffed it into Yan Ling-er's mouth. Yan Ling-er struggled, trying to get rid of the nauseating cloth. Unfortunately, her whole body was tied up, and she was powerless. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL. Seeing this familiar scene, Len Ruoxue deeply felt that she had made the right decision in abducting Shuang. This fellow was born to be hers. Why did he have such similar thoughts as them? Hee. Captain, mission accomplished. The subordinate said excitedly. Well done, but I'm curious where you found the cloth. The leader of the men in gray asked nosily. I took it from a beggar. The subordinate reported. Oh. The leader of the men in gray nodded in appreciation, then ordered everyone to return home. Under the supervision of a few men in gray, Len Ruoxue and her beast followed behind the large group of people and arrived in front of a large manor. When she saw the two large words, Hong Manor on the plaque in front of the manor, she realized that she and her group had been captured by the Hong clan. AI. No wonder these gray-robed men dared to capture people in Great City, it turned out that this was their territory. They just didn't know what kind of grudge the Yan clan had with the Hong clan, to the point that they were also implicated. After they were brought to the Hong family, Len Ruoxue and the rest were locked up in a cell. However, they were locked up separately from the Yan family's father and daughter, which was exactly what she wanted. Len Ruoxue leaned comfortably in the arms of the evildoer. She looked at the Yan clan members in the opposite cell through the bars and felt deep sense of sympathy for their encounter. Poor father and daughter of the Yan family. They were all tied up like a rice dumpling, but even so, Yan Ling-er's fierce eyes were still glaring at her. Why do you always get glared at? Shuang said with a gloating smile. Is that even human? I didn't classify her as a human. Len Ruoxue said with a face full of mockery. If she didn't respect others' things, she naturally didn't deserve to be respected. But she can't be considered a beast. Snow Shadow teased. Yup. You can categorize her as whatever you like, but just don't treat her as a human. Len Ruoxue reminded with a faint smile. The human and beast's cooperation almost caused Yan Ling, who was in the opposite cell, to explode from anger. Ha ha ha. Well said, she really can't be considered a human in her current state. At this time, a woman's mocking voice rang out in the prison cell. Len Ruoxue looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young lady in green. She was standing at the entrance of the cell with a beautiful smile on her face. Her eyes were filled with provocation as she looked at Yan Ling Er's cell. Woo-woo. When Yan Ling Er saw who it was, she stood up from the ground excitedly. It seemed like she wanted to say something, but her body was tied up, and her mouth was gagged, so she couldn't say anything at all. You don't need to say anything. I won't let you out. You can just stay in the cell. The lady in green chuckled. Then, she turned her gaze towards Len Ruoxue and the rest. Her eyes lit up when she saw the demon and Shuang. You're not from the Yan family? The lady in green raised her beautiful eyes and looked at the demon as she asked. Of course we're not from the Yan family. Seeing that the demon did not reply, Len Ruoxue could only reply on his behalf. I'm not asking you. Who allowed you to speak out of turn? The green-clothed woman reproached. Her beautiful face was still filled with dissatisfaction. Ah. Len Ruoxue was speechless. She was being nosy, but it seemed impossible for the woman to hear anything from the demon's mouth, because she had already sensed a trace of impatience from the demon. Miss Lu, you're really too rude. It's good that someone is willing to answer your question. You don't know how to be grateful and even scolded him. You're really uneducated. Shuang said with a look of dissatisfaction. Who is Miss Lu? The green-robed woman asked, suppressing her anger. Of course it's you. Shuang said matter-of-factly, and couldn't help but secretly think to himself, why is the intelligence of all the women I've met these days so low? He didn't even know who he was calling. Compared to Shui, these women were simply retards. This made it very dissatisfied. Chapter 1323, The Yan Family's Enemy, 4, My surname is Hong, not Lu. The green-clothed woman couldn't bear it anymore and shouted. Who said your surname is Lu? I'm talking about the lady in green. Shuang said innocently. When Len Ruoxue heard Shui Ying's reply, she could not help but chuckle softly. Shuang was really too bad. It was clearly calling out like that on purpose, purely to anger the woman in front of it. It was the same when it called Yan Ling, last time. It seemed that Shuang was addicted to playing with her. If the one in red called her Miss Red, and the one in green called her Miss Green, then the next time he saw a young lady in other colors, would there be more Miss Black, Miss White, and so on? Len Ruoxue couldn't help but think to herself. What are you laughing at? Don't laugh. When Miss Hong, who was dressed in green, heard Len Ruoxue's laughter, she could not help but shout out in anger. Miss Lu, you're quite meddlesome. Do you even care if others laugh at you? Len Ruoxue asked with a calm smile. Damn it, my surname is not Lu. You're not allowed to call me Miss Lu. The lady in green was enraged. She pulled out the whip from her waist and lashed it at Len Ruoxue. Why was it a whip again? Len Ruoxue felt helpless. Why was it that at least 9 out of 10 women she met liked to use whips to display their might? Should she also prepare a whip and be ready to use it to whip people at any time? In fact, she didn't like weapons like whips. In fact, she hated whips to the core. Therefore, she didn't have a good impression of women who used whips to act violently. Therefore, when the green-clothed woman attacked, she also attacked. A small flame jumped happily towards the woman in green. In an instant, the whip in her hand turned to ashes. Not only that, the flame also spread to her wrist, causing her to cry out in pain. Immediately after, 2 guards rushed in from outside. After seeing the injured young miss, they quickly helped her out. When Yan Ling saw that Hong Xian, who was the lady in green, was injured, she was extremely pleased. However, she was still filled with killing intent towards Leng Ruoxue, who had caused Hong Xin's injury. After the lady in green was injured and left, the demon said to Leng Ruoxue with dissatisfaction, "Shui, I should be the one doing this. It's a man's responsibility to protect his woman. But I also want to protect my man from being coveted by other women, so I have to make a move when it's time." Leng Ruoxue chuckled. "Yes, well, protect each other," the demon said in a slightly nauseating manner, causing Shuang to subconsciously hide to the side, and even exaggeratedly shake his long snow-white fur. Shuang was just about to remind Leng Ruoxue that they would be in trouble soon after hurting Miss Lu. However, the trouble came faster than he had expected. He had only managed to say 2 words when he heard footsteps entering the cell. "Who is so bold to hurt our second miss?" A middle-aged man who looked like a butler shouted. "You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 didn't say anything. However, Yan Ling obviously wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to get rid of Leng Ruoxue. Unfortunately, her mouth was gagged and she couldn't speak, so she could only use body language to express her thoughts. "Miss Yan, you know." The butler looked at Yan Ling's appearance and quickly asked. His second miss had injured her hand and had fainted from the pain. They only knew that her second miss had been injured in the cell, but they didn't know who had injured her. That was why they had come to the cell to ask. Yes. Yan Ling nodded vigorously, afraid that the other party would not understand her meaning. "Since Miss Yan knows, please tell me who this person is," the butler said indifferently. Yes. Yan Ling kept nodding her head, and her eyes drifted to Leng Ruoxue. Following Yan Ling's line of sight, the steward's eyes landed on Leng Ruoxue. His eyes lit up instantly. He never thought that there would be such a stunning beauty locked up in this cell. However, if this beauty had really hurt the second young miss, she would not be able to live long. "Was it you who injured the second young miss?" the butler asked in a soft voice, putting away his strange thoughts. "If I said no, would you believe me?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. "There's a witness, of course I won't believe it." The butler thought for a moment and told the truth. "If that's the case, why are you still asking me?" Leng Ruoxue retorted. "Ah." The butler was taken aback by Leng Ruoxue's question. He had not expected her to be such a beauty. Oh. The master would probably like this type of woman. At the thought of this, he smiled at Leng Ruoxue and said, "Although there are witnesses, the evidence is obviously not enough. When the young lady wakes up, I will ask her clearly. At that time, if it was really you who did it, don't blame me." After saying that, the butler led the team out of the cell. Looking at the Hong family's housekeeper leaving after asking a bunch of questions in a loud voice, Yan Ling felt extremely depressed. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. Fuck, what a useless man. He couldn't even handle such a small matter. In her opinion, since she had already testified against her, she should have arrested that hateful woman and tortured her. She shouldn't have just left after asking a few questions. Looking at the depressed Yan Ling, Leng Ruoxue smiled and said, "It seems that Miss Yan's wishful thinking will not work. However, don't blame me for not warning you. If you want to drag me down, I don't mind hitting you when you're down. We'll see who can live to the end." After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Yan Ling glared at her in anger. However, Leng Ruoxue ignored her. The next day, the Hong family's butler brought Leng Ruoxue to a study. After entering the study room, Leng Ruoxue found a chair and sat down as if she was in her own home. The man sitting behind the desk only smiled when he saw Leng Ruoxue's actions, but he did not criticize her. "May I know what is the relationship between Miss and the Yen family?" the man was the first to ask. "It doesn't matter." Leng Ruoxue said coldly, and casually raised her beautiful eyes to glance at the man who spoke. This man looked to be around 40 years old. Although he wasn't very handsome, he was still considered decent. His strength was around the middle level of a supreme deity. If she guessed correctly, this person should be the current family head or the substitute family head of the Hong family. Chapter 1324, The Yen Family's Enemy, 5. Since there's no relationship, then why is young lady and the rest with the Yen clan? The man asked in confusion. He had only sent people to catch the Yen family, but he didn't expect to catch a beautiful woman. However, if he knew that the beautiful woman in his eyes was caught willingly, he would probably be depressed. What are you saying? I can't be with the Yen family just because I have no relationship with them. What if I say I'm a prisoner of the Yen clan? Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Ah. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the man didn't know what to say. It seemed like the butler was right. Although this woman was beautiful, she was also ruthless. I don't know how young Miss became the Yen clan's prisoner. Now that the Yen clan's eldest master is in my hands, perhaps I can help young Miss get rid of her status as a prisoner. The man suggested with a smile. Miss Yen has taken a fancy to my man, so she wanted to kill me. However, she was frightened by my beastie, so the father and daughter caught us and wanted to bring us back to the Yen family to be dealt with. Leng Ruoxue explained simply. So that's how it is. Yen Ling has always been overbearing. As long as she has her eyes on something, she will definitely get it. Young lady has suffered. The man said sympathetically. It's not your place to apologize to me. Leng Ruoxue reminded him, feeling a little amused. She did not appreciate this man's goodwill, nor did she dare to. After all, she was not related to this man in any way. This fellow probably did not have any good intentions. Miss must have misunderstood me. I'm only doing this out of good intentions. The man said with a calm smile. Is that so? Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and did not say anything. After that, the man tried to start a conversation with Leng Ruoxue. However, Leng Ruoxue seemed to be ignoring him. When the man saw this, he could only order the butler to send her back. After the Hong family's butler brought Leng Ruoxue out of the study, they did not return to the cell. Instead, they were brought to a side courtyard. That side courtyard was located in the southwest of the Hong family's main residence. Although it was a certain distance away from the main courtyard, the scenery in the courtyard was very unique. There was even a small stream that ran through the entire courtyard. A few beautiful fish were happily swimming around in the stream. Looking at the beautiful scenery and the pleasant weather, Leng Ruoxue chuckled and played dumb as she asked, "Is this a prison cell? I've only been gone for a while and the prison has changed." Of course this isn't a prison cell. My master knows that you're not a member of the Yen family and was afraid that you'd be wronged. That's why he ordered me to arrange for you to stay here. The butler explained, implying that Leng Ruoxue should appreciate his master's kindness. Oh. Then what about my man and beastie? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL.com, of course they don't have such treatment. The butler said with disdain. If that's the case, then please take me back to the prison. I want to be with them. Leng Ruoxue said in a serious tone. Why are you so insensible? The butler shouted angrily. He was so excited that his entire body was trembling. Calm down. Old people shouldn't be so agitated, you'll die of sudden death. Leng Ruoxue reminded kindly. The butler was so angry that he could not speak. However, Leng Ruoxue had no intention of letting him off just like that. Are you going to bring me back to the prison, or bring my man and beastie here? Make your choice. After she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue found a random spot in the garden and sat down, waiting for the butler, who was so angry that his face had turned green, to make a decision. After a long while, the butler heaved a sigh of relief and said helplessly, "Little ancestor, I'll bring them here, all right?" He admitted defeat. The master had ordered him to satisfy all the requests of this young lady. AI. The master really forgot his daughter when he saw a woman. He had originally promised the second miss to severely punish this young lady, but after seeing her, he changed his mind. Not only did he ask him to arrange for this young lady to stay in the side courtyard, but he also ordered him to satisfy all her requests. This subordinate is in a difficult position. If the second miss knew about this, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? Not long after, the butler brought the demon and snow shadow over. When Shuang saw their new residence, he deliberately praised, AI. It was good to be beautiful. There's always someone to take care of you wherever you go. What did you just say? When the demon heard Shui Ying's words, he narrowed his eyes dangerously and asked with some displeasure. Ah. I didn't say anything. Shuang hurriedly covered her mouth, her heart trembling. Woo. This hateful fellow, why did she get angry at such a cute little animal? If she wanted to vent her anger, she should go to a certain man who wanted to court her. Humph. The evildoer snorted coldly, but his pitch-black eyes shot towards the Hong family's steward like a sharp arrow. The steward was so frightened that his body trembled even more. He casually found an excuse and the steward fled. You're still the most powerful. Shui Ying's eyes were filled with countless stars as he spoke with an expression of worship. Shui, you've met the head of the Hong family. The demon ignored Shui Ying's admiration and asked Leng Ruoxue. I've seen him before. That person didn't introduce himself. Leng Ruoxue said honestly. Oh. What is he trying to do by doing all this? The demon frowned and said with a displeased expression. Isn't it obvious? Snow Shadow interrupted. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. The demon roared angrily. All right. I'll just shut up. Shuang said in an extremely aggrieved manner. Woo. As a cute fox, why did it have no status? His resentful gaze drifted over to Leng Ruoxue, but was ignored by her. Seeing this, Shui Ying's heart was bleeding. The next day, the two humans and one beast had just finished lunch and were sitting in the garden, basking in the sun. However, they were suddenly disturbed by an uninvited guest. These uninvited guests were two women. One of them was the green-clothed woman they had seen a few days ago. She was also the young Miss Lu that Shuang had mentioned. Miss Lu, have your injuries recovered? I heard that your injuries aren't light. How did you get out of bed so quickly? Shuang looked at the furious green-clothed lady nearby and said with a regretful expression. Damn it, weren't you guys in the prison? Why are you here? Hong Xian looked at the relaxed Leng Ruoxue in front of him, and the anger in his heart rose. The Hong family is now in the hands of Miss Lu. Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. What do you mean by that? Hong Xian asked in confusion. What I mean is, if the Hong family isn't decided by Miss Lu, then you don't need to ask where we are. In fact, I also want to know why we were moved here from the cell. Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile. Miss, this is our Hong family after all. Therefore, you should be more polite to the master. At this time, the woman beside Hong Xian spoke softly. Leng Ruoxue turned to look at the woman who had spoken. She was dressed in light purple and had an alluring figure. Her delicate face was filled with charm, and her eyes were as alluring as autumn water. Her pink lips were slightly open, but her face was a little pale. She looked extremely pitiful. A woman like this could definitely arouse a man's strong desire to protect her. However, it was a pity that neither the man nor the fox in front of the lady in purple had the characteristics of being tender to a woman. Therefore, her weak appearance was a waste. Miss Z, you're so funny. We were captured by your Hong family and you expect us to be polite to you? I really don't know if my brain is broken or if you don't have a brain. Leng Ruoxue imitated the way Shuang addressed her and said with a mocking expression. My last name is not Z. The purple-clothed woman's reaction was exactly the same as Hong Xian's. Her beautiful face didn't show anger from embarrassment, but an incomparable grievance. Her beautiful eyes were like autumn water, and she even secretly glanced at the demon. Unfortunately, the unromantic demon didn't even bother to raise his head, let alone look at her. When the purple-clothed woman saw that her charm, which had always been successful, had actually lost its effect in front of this handsome godlike man, her self-esteem could not help but take a blow. However, she, who had always been doted on by the Hong family, naturally would not easily admit defeat. "Who cares what your last name is?" Shuang laughed. These self-righteous women. Did they really think that they cared about who they were? They were just too lazy to ask for their names, so they called them by the color of their clothes, hee. Chapter 1325, The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family, 1, Stupid Fox. How dare you? How can you speak to my sister like that? Hong Xian saw that his sister was being bullied by a fox, and immediately roared in righteous anger. Miss Lu. Calm down. You're the daughter of a big family, this will make you worry about not being able to get married. Shuang kindly reminded her. However, his words seemed to have touched the lady in green's sore spot. After the lady in green heard his words, she actually started to roar without caring about her image. Who are you saying can't get married? Why can't I get married? I don't know how many people are fighting to marry me. Hong Xian roared angrily, her beautiful face turning red. Seeing her like this, Leng Ruoxue and the rest only smiled indifferently and ignored the two women in front of them. Hey! I'm talking to you. Don't pretend to be mute. After a long while, Hong Xian saw that no one was paying attention to her and couldn't help but ask loudly. Miss Lu is talking to us. How come I didn't hear that? Leng Ruoxue played dumb. You just wait. This is our Hong family. You can't be so presumptuous. Hong Xian was furious. Just as she was about to whip Leng Ruoxue as usual to teach her a lesson, she realized that there was nothing on her waist. It was then that she suddenly remembered that her whip had been destroyed by this detestable woman in front of her. She had even been injured because of it. Hence, she was even more furious. Miss Lu, although we are just prisoners, we also have our dignity. As the master, you don't know how to love yourself. It's fine if you don't respect others, but you also don't care about your image and come to a place where others go and shout. If word of your current appearance spreads, I'm afraid that the Hong family's reputation will also be affected by you. At that time, not to mention you, even this gentle as water, weak and lovely sister of yours, I'm afraid no one will dare to want her. Leng Ruoxue reminded kindly. This young lady is right. We have been impolite. Xian, let's leave. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the lady in purple gave a slight bow as an apology. After she finished speaking, she pulled the extremely unwilling Hong Xian and left Leng Ruoxue and the others' residence. Looking at the back of the two people leaving, Shuang was quite puzzled and asked, Shue, why did the two of them just leave like that? What else? Do you want Hong Xian to capture you and make you her beastie? Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly as she teased Hong Xian. She could still remember the look in Hong Xin's eyes when he first saw Shuang. I don't want to. I'm already taken. Snow Shadow looked at the evildoer provocatively as it spoke with a hint of pride. The master it was referring to was naturally Leng Ruoxue. Although it had not officially recognized her as its master, in its heart, no one was more suitable than Leng Ruoxue to be its master. If it really wanted to recognize a master, it would definitely be Leng Ruoxue. No one else was worthy. Ah! Hearing Shui Ying's words, Leng Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines. Actually, she really wanted to tell Shuang that the words, "a famous woman already has a master" should not be used carelessly. However, Shuang was obviously doing this on purpose. Feeling the evildoer's rising anger, Leng Ruoxue tactfully pulled him into the room, in case Shuang was killed by him. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue and the demon had left, Shuang pretended to be sad and said, "Ai. Why am I always the lonely one?" After mumbling to himself, Snow Shadow also disappeared. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL. Calm. After Hong Xian and her sister left the side courtyard, they came to the main courtyard angrily to question their father. Facing Hong Xin's questioning tone, the anger in the Hong family's head slowly rose. His face darkened as he said coldly, "Are you questioning me? How can you speak to your own father like that? Father! You promised to help me take revenge, how can you go back on your word?" Hong Xian pouted and said in dissatisfaction. "That woman isn't a member of the Yen clan, and I'm not sure about her background. Do you think I'll just take the risk of avenging you? If the other party is someone we can't afford to offend, it will bring disaster to our Hong family." The man said as if he was deep in thought. Humph. Looking at the girl's dress, she didn't seem to be the daughter of a big family. "What are you thinking, father? Or do you like that woman?" Hong Xian obviously didn't believe his father's words, and still asked loudly. "What nonsense are you spouting?" The man immediately felt embarrassed that his daughter had seen through his thoughts, so he loudly rebuked her. Humph. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, father knows very well in his heart. However, that woman is indeed a beauty, so it's reasonable for father to like her. Unfortunately, she's not qualified to be father's concubine. At most, she's only worthy of being a bed-warming servant girl. Hong Xian warned. You're getting more and more out of hand." The man suppressed his anger and growled. His daughter didn't have good taste, but that didn't mean she didn't either. How could a woman like her agree to be someone else's bed-warming servant? Although he knew that his daughter said this on purpose, he didn't know why, but he felt uncomfortable in his heart. Xian, don't talk nonsense, father will be angry." Sensing her father's displeasure, the woman in purple tugged at Hong Xin's sleeve, trying to remind her to be careful with her words and not to anger her father. However, Hong Xin's temper was that it would be better if others didn't persuade her, but if someone did, her temper would only get worse. Therefore, not only did the purple-dressed woman's words not have a good effect, but it also made Hong Xian even angrier. "Father! Don't forget that you promised to avenge me. Now, I want to add 2 more conditions. I want that man and that fox, and you have to find a way to get them for me." Hong Xian ordered like a queen. Her words made the man's heart skip a beat and he almost fainted. You unfilial daughter. You actually dare to order me around. Men! Lock up the second miss. Without my orders, no one is allowed to let her out. The man angrily shouted at the guard outside the door. The guard came in and took Hong Xian away without hesitation. "Father! Xian, is still young and insensible, please don't hold it against her, please let her go." When the purple-clothed woman saw that Hong Xian was taken away by the guards, she quickly pleaded for mercy. The guards in the main courtyard only listened to her father, and Xian had angered her father. This time, she was afraid that Xian would have to stay in her courtyard for a while. "Lien, if Xian is half as sensible as you, I'll be content." The man sighed. In fact, he was very clear about the temperament of his 2 daughters. Although he seemed to dote on Hong Lien on the surface, in reality, he doted on Hong Xian more. Chapter 1326, The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family, 2, because although Hong Xin's temper wasn't good and was a little willful, but that was her true nature. As for Hong Lien, this daughter, she looked weak and fragile on the outside but her schemes were too deep and she was too good at disguising herself. If this kind of woman were to marry into another family, she would definitely be an excellent chess piece. However, in the Hong family, he had to be on guard. "Father, Xian is still young. When she's older, she'll be more sensible." Hong Lien consoled. "I hope so. Lien, your body hasn't fully recovered yet. Why did you come out? Quickly go back to your room and rest. I'll come to see you when I'm done." The man said with a concerned look. "Father, I've been weak and sickly since I was young. I've gotten used to it after so many years, so you don't have to worry about me. If it wasn't for my health, the relationship between our Hong family and the Yen family wouldn't be like this. I've let you down, father. I've let the Hong family down. Hong Lian's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Lian, how can you be blamed for this? Don't think too much about it. The man consoled. But Hong Lian seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say it. Lian, you don't have to say anything. Father understands. Quickly go back to your room and rest. The man hurriedly said. Father. Then I'll go back to my room first. After Hong Lian finished speaking, he gave a bow and left. The moment Hong Lian left, the butler walked in. Patriarch, what do you think we should do about this? The butler asked carefully. He knew that the master was not in a good mood, but the master had to give him instructions so that he could carry out the next step. After all, he did not dare to make decisions on his own. Did you send someone to inform the Yen clan? The man asked coldly. I've already sent people over. Don't worry, Patriarch. However, what about the other 3? The butler looked conflicted. What do you mean? Didn't you already arrange for them to stay in the side courtyard? The man asked in confusion. Master, what I mean is that second miss and them are like fire and water, and you're treating them so well. I'm afraid it will affect the relationship between you and your daughter. So, I hope Master will think twice. The butler reminded him in a low voice. You don't need to worry about this matter. I know what I'm doing. You can leave. The man said in a somewhat upset manner. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL.com, yes. The butler replied and turned to leave. At night. When Leng Ruoxue and the demon walked out of the room, they saw Shuang sitting in the garden. The stone table in front of him was filled with all sorts of delicacies and Shuang was eating with great joy. Looking at Shuang whose face was covered in oil, Leng Ruoxue shook her head helplessly and said, Shuang, pay attention to your image. It's a pity that you have such beautiful long fur. Shua, I know you've been drooling over my fur for a long time. Wait until I'm done eating, then I'll wash it and let you touch it all you want. Shuang laughed evilly. These things were all sent over by the attentive housekeeper, saying that it was for them to eat. However, Shuang was well aware that if it wasn't for Leng Ruoxue, they wouldn't have been able to enjoy such good treatment. Even though the food was not as delicious as the one Shua made, it was still acceptable. You're looking for death. The moment the demon heard Snow Shadow's words, his anger immediately surged up. He raised his leg and kicked in Snow Shadow's direction. However, Snow Shadow dodged it nimbly. What a petty man, you're so easily embarrassed and angry, woo. Shua, He's bullying small animals. Shuang ran to Leng Ruoxue's side to seek protection. A small animal? Leng Ruoxue looked at Shuang, who had called himself a small animal, and could not help but laugh in her heart. To be honest, she had never seen such a huge small animal. If it became a small animal, then what would those smaller than it be called? A small animal? Shua, You have to protect me. Shuang tugged at Leng Ruoxue's clothes fearfully. Don't play around anymore. Be careful or hell really get angry. I won't help you then. Leng Ruoxue helplessly reminded. You're a woman who values her lover over her friends. I've misjudged you. When Shuang heard this, he immediately pouted and said in a very dissatisfied manner. Then I'll value my lover over my friends, how's that? Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. There shouldn't be anything wrong with helping her man, right? What can I do? Don't be so fierce. Shui Ying's little heart trembled in fear. You're tactful. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Shua, I won't tease you anymore. By the way, I went out for a walk this afternoon. Guess what I found out? Shuang said with a mysterious expression. Go out for a walk. With your giant fox appearance? No one wants to capture you as a beastie. Leng Ruoxue sized up Shuang and asked curiously, "Oh. A fourth-ranked sacred beast or higher seemed to be worth a lot of money, especially such a beautiful big fox. Presumably, many women would like it and want to keep it for themselves. TSK, who dares to capture me? I can't bite him to death." Shuang said arrogantly. "Shua, do you want to know what I've found out?" Snow Shadow continued to ask. "If you want to say it, then say it. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it." Leng Ruoxue acted as if she didn't care. "Can't you just cooperate?" Shuang said gloomily. Woo. Even Shua was bullying him. "All right. Shuang, what did you find out?" Leng Ruoxue asked, pretending to be curious. "I'll tell you if you want to know," Shuang said with a hint of pride, his proud tail almost raised up. "If you want to say it quickly. I'll roast you and eat you if you continue to talk nonsense." When the demon saw Shuaying's smug look, he was so angry that he directly threatened him. "Woo-woo. Shua, he's going to eat me." When Shuang heard this, he looked at Leng Ruoxue with tears in his eyes, seeking protection. However, he was completely ignored by Leng Ruoxue. "Then don't keep us in suspense. There's a limit to the patience of a demon," Leng Ruoxue reminded. "All right then." Shuang cleared his throat and began to speak. "I've heard that the Hong clan and the Yen clan were originally on good terms. However, the reason why they fell out with each other was because of the eldest miss of the Hong clan, the lady in purple, Hong Lian, whom we met this afternoon. The head of the Hong clan had the intention to be in-laws with the Yen clan, and Hong Lian happened to have taken a fancy to the fifth young master of the Yen clan. However, the fifth young master of the Yen clan did not like her and rejected the marriage on the spot. Hong Lian was so angry that his old illness relapsed, and the head of the Hong clan also deeply felt that he had hurt the face of the Hong clan. Hence, from then on, he continuously caused trouble for the Yen clan. The robbery of the Yen clan's first master this time was also because of this matter," Snow Shadow explained with a smile. Of course, it had heard these words from the streets, and it had not verified whether they were true or false. Chapter 1327, The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family, 3. Could it be that the old master of the Yen clan doesn't know that his clan has already fallen out with the Hong clan? "Why did you come to Hong City to settle down?" Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. According to common sense, if two clans had fallen out, normal people would not come to the other's territory to avoid being caught and used to threaten their own clans. However, this eldest master of the Yen clan did not take the usual route. He insisted on passing through the enemy's territory to return to his own clan. Wasn't he seeking his own death? It shouldn't be that he doesn't know. He just doesn't care. I didn't expect the Hong family to not let him off either, the demon said. I wonder if the Yen clan will send people to save their master if they find out that he has fallen into the hands of the Hong clan. Leng Ruoxue was extremely curious. If I don't want to save them, I'll just let them die on their own, the demon said coldly. It's a pity we're not from the Yen family. Leng Ruoxue laughed. Actually, her thoughts were similar to that of a demon. For people like the Yen family's eldest master and daughter, living was a waste of food. It was better to die early and reincarnate. Shwap, we just need to watch the drama between their two families. As for the debt of them kidnapping us, we will slowly settle it with them after the matter between them is resolved, the demon suggested. That's what I want. Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement. You guys are so bad, but I like it, Shuang said with a smile. The two men and one beast looked at each other and laughed. They discussed their countermeasures and then went back to their own rooms. At the same time, the Yen clan had also received news from the Hong clan. The Yen clan's first master and the others were in their hands. When the Yen family had received this news, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. When the Yen family members saw this, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. After all, the family head was the backbone of their Yen family. They couldn't allow any mishaps. Therefore, at that moment, no one was in the mood to discuss how to save the father and daughter. They only wanted to comfort the master. Looking at the half-unconscious master, everyone in the Yen family was extremely worried. They all stayed by the master's bedside, not daring to leave. After all, this was the best time for them to show their loyalty to the master, so of course, they would not let it go. After a long while. Only then did the patriarch of the Yen clan open his eyes and look at the people of the Yen clan gathered around his bed. Not only did he not feel relieved, but he felt even more upset. You are reading on MYBILXN0VEL, com AI. Why didn't any of the Yen family's descendants make him worry? Master. You have to be careful of your health. You're the pillar of support for the Yen clan. For the sake of the Yen clan, you have to take care of your body. An elder from the Yen clan spoke first. Each and every one of them doesn't give me peace of mind. I'm so angry at these unfilial descendants that I'm about to die. The patriarch of the Yen clan said with a look of disappointment. Master, you don't have to worry about the eldest master's matter, just leave it to me. The elder said. Forget it, there's no need to care about his life or death. He clearly knows that our Yen family and the Hong family are like fire and water, yet he still came to the Hong family's territory. Even if something were to happen to him, he can't blame anyone else. I'll just treat it as if I never had this son. Although the head of the Yen clan was in a daze due to his illness, he had also thought it through very clearly. The reason why the Hong clan had captured his eldest son was nothing more than to blackmail him. Therefore, he could not destroy the Yen clan's many years of foundation just because of a useless son. If that happened, he would be too embarrassed to go to the divine world and meet the ancestors of the clan. Father. Are you really not going to care about Big Brother and Ling? Second Master Yen couldn't help but ask. I don't care. Life and death are up to fate. It's all up to his own good fortune. The Yen clan master said ruthlessly. Master, have a good rest. Don't worry about these small things. The elder said. Yes. The Yen family head nodded and indicated that they could leave. After everyone had left the patriarch's room, the Yen clan's second master quickly called out to a few of the elders and said with an anxious expression, Elders, father is speaking in a fit of anger. You can't ignore Big Brother's life. Second master. The patriarch's words just now were very clear. He told us not to care about the life and death of the first master. If we disobey the patriarch's orders and bring disaster to the family, we can't afford to take responsibility for it. One of the elders said helplessly. Yup. Second master, the clan is currently in troubled times. We have to think for the clan. As for first master, we can only count on his luck. Another elder said sympathetically. However, it was obvious that they were powerless to do anything about this. With that, the elders left hand in hand, leaving the Yen clan's second master standing alone in a daze. After a long time. Only then did second master Yen react. He had originally planned to return to his own residence, but as he walked, he came to the guest courtyard where Ziyu and the others were staying. When he realized that he had gone to the wrong place, Ziyu and the others also happened to discover him. Ziyu and the others were sitting in the garden drinking tea and chatting. When they saw the somewhat absent-minded second master of the Yen clan, they were all puzzled. What was wrong with this second master? The second master of the Yen clan had often come to keep them company during the past few days they had been staying at the Yen residence. Therefore, they were considered familiar with the second master of the Yen clan. However, they had never seen this expression on the second master's face. Did something happen to the Yen family again? The four of them secretly guessed. Second master, please sit. Ziyu invited with a smile. Thank you. The second master of the Yen clan sat down, but he did not say a word. Second master, is there something that's troubling you? Why don't you tell us? Maybe we can give you some advice. Ziyu smiled faintly and said softly. AI. It's a long story. The Yen clan's second master heavily sighed. It's okay, we have time to listen to you. Yu Jing said. You guys should know my big brother, right? He was sent to northern Yen City by father a while ago, but he has yet to return. Second Master Yen said. I've heard of him. It's said that he has left northern Yen City for a long time. Why hasn't he returned yet? Ziyu probed. He was captured by the Hong family. They're using him as a hostage. The Yen clan's second master said helplessly. What's going on with the Hong family? Ziyu and the other three were a little dumbfounded. The Yen clan aside, why was there a Hong clan now? Where is the young miss now? Chapter 1328, The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family. 4. The Hong family and our Yen family were old friends. However, because of the falling out with the next generation's marriage, the Hong family now sees us as enemies. As long as they see the Yen family, they won't let them off. The Yen clan's second master said helplessly. Isn't it just a marriage? You're making a mountain out of a molehill by turning hostile over such a small matter. Bai Xian said, somewhat speechless. That marriage is just an excuse for the Hong family to fall out with us. In fact, the real reason is that the Hong family wants to swallow us up. Therefore, even without that marriage as the fire lock, they would still find other excuses to fall out with us. The second master of the Yen clan understood. Outsiders only thought that the Hong and Yen clans had fallen out because of the unsuccessful marriage, but that was not the case. The matter was not as simple as they thought. The head of the Hong clan was extremely ambitious. Otherwise, why would he take the opportunity to make trouble over a small marriage? His father had been seriously injured because of this and had yet to recover. So that's how it is. I wonder what the Yen clan's plans are. Ziyu asked indifferently. The Yen family is planning to leave my big brother to his own devices. The Yen clan's second master said with some difficulty. Oh. The Yen clan's decision is right. Just let that old master of yours live and die on his own. Yu Qing said with a gloating expression. Ha! The Yen family's decision really won her heart. After listening to Yu Qing's words, the Yen clan's second master's head was full of black lines. He really didn't know what his big brother had done this time. He actually let Yu Qing know that his big brother had been captured, and the Yen clan didn't plan to save him, and yet he was so happy. Hee hee. Second Master Yen, the moon, I didn't mean it. Don't take it to heart. Ziyu gave Yu Qing a look, asking her to restrain herself, and said to the Yen clan's second master with an apologetic face. I won, T. That big brother of mine is indeed not very likable. The second master of the Yen clan said awkwardly. It seems that you're quite clear about this. Yu Qing said with a smile. Ah. Second Master Yen didn't know what to say anymore. He could already confirm that his eldest brother had indeed done something they didn't know about. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an attitude. He probably wouldn't come looking for him. The extremely embarrassed second Master Yen, after understanding the intentions of Ziyu and the others, could not stay any longer. Not long after, he stood up and took his leave. Watching the Yen clan's second master's back as he left, Yu Qing disdainfully pouted. She then turned to look at Ziyu and said, Ziyu, not only did that Yen clan's first master not bring the young miss back, he even implicated the young miss and got her captured by the Hong clan. Let's go to the Hong clan. Let's just wait and see. No matter if the young lady is in the hands of the Yen clan's first master or in the Hong clan, she won't be in any danger. Ziyu said, feeling assured. But, it's been so long. I can't wait any longer. Why don't I go to the Hong residence myself, and you guys wait for me and Miss at the Yen residence? Yu Qing suggested. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, that's good. Then you should make a trip to the Hong family. Ziyu looked at Yu Qing's eager appearance and said helplessly. Yu Qing, I'll go with you. Xiang, received Zi's hint and quickly said. Then let's go. The moon, I said happily, hee hee. She was really afraid that Ziyu would object just now. With Yu Qing's impetuous nature, the two of them left Yen City in the next moment. Only after leaving Yen City did the two of them realize that they actually didn't know where the Hong family was. What should he do? If he went back to ask around, he would be laughed at by Ziyu. Therefore, the two of them could only bite the bullet and ask around to find their target. Fortunately, Hong City wasn't far from Yen City and the people in the vicinity knew the location. Otherwise, they would have to take many unnecessary steps. However, after arriving at Hong City, they weren't too sure if their young lady was really here until they contacted Leng Ruoxue. After the two of them confirmed Leng Ruoxue's location, they went straight to the Hong family's main residence. However, before the two of them could enter, they were stopped by the guards at the door. We're looking for someone. Yu Qing said with some displeasure. Looking for who? Do you have a letter of visit? The guard asked loudly. No, I didn't, We're looking for my young miss, but she was captured by you along with the Yen clan. Xiang explained in a soft voice. Originally, she wanted to ask a guard to inform them. However, Yu Qing said that the young lady had been captured and wasn't here as a guest. How could the guards of the Hong family inform them? After hearing this, Xiang felt that it was reasonable and agreed with Yu Qing's idea of barging in. Perhaps the Hong family would be angry and lock them up with the young lady. With this thought in mind, the two of them swaggered past the guards at the door and wanted to walk in directly. However, they could ignore the guards, but the guards could not ignore them. Therefore, they were stopped as they wished. Wait a moment, I have to report this. When the guard heard Xiang's words, he hurriedly said. Ah. Seeing the guard's reaction, the two of them were dumbfounded. What was going on? Their attitudes were equivalent to smashing the place, so why did the guards still have to go in and report? Just as the two of them were confused, the butler of the Hong family walked out. You want to see the young lady who was with the Yen family? The steward's shrewd eyes swept over Yu Qing and Xiang. When he discovered that the two of them only had the strength of an initial stage deity, he didn't pay too much attention to them and asked indifferently. Yes, I am. Xiang nodded. Follow me. The butler saw that the two of them were not very powerful and they were both women. He did not ask any questions and brought them into the Hong residence. Then, he brought them all the way to the side courtyard where Leng Ruoxue and the others were staying. Yu Qing and Xiang followed behind the Hong family's butler, and the two of them were still communicating with each other through voice transmission. Xiang, what do you think is going on with the Hong family? Is he trying to trick us into coming here and then get rid of us? Seeing the Hong family's reaction, Yu Qing was a little worried. I don't think so. Xiang was also a little confused, not knowing what the Hong family was up to. However, when they saw Leng Ruoxue, everything became clear. As they followed the butler to the side courtyard, the two of them saw Leng Ruoxue sitting in the garden. Chapter 1329, The Decision of the Head of the Hong Family, 5, Miss. The two of them could not care less about the presence of the Hong family's butler. They immediately pounced towards Leng Ruoxue. Seeing this, the demon quickly pulled Shui into his arms, causing Yu Qing and Xiang to miss. Miss. The two of them looked at Leng Ruoxue with hidden bitterness, as if they were complaining. Young Miss Leng, these two people said that they are your maidservants. I wonder if you know them? The butler asked calmly. The truth was already in front of him, but he still had to ask. I do, they are my people. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Oh. Then I won't care about their matters anymore. Miss Leng, you can make your own arrangements. The butler said. After he finished speaking, he bowed and turned to leave. Miss, what's going on? Weren't you captured by the Hong family? Yu Qing asked in puzzlement. The Hong clan's attitude towards their young miss was really too strange. This courtyard didn't seem like it was meant to be used as a prison. That's right, We were captured by the Hong family. Leng Ruoxue was extremely calm. Ah. Does the Hong family treat their prisoners so well? Xiang Er's face was also filled with curiosity. Shui is not an ordinary prisoner. Shuang laughed evilly. Ah. Could it be that the old fart from the Hong family has designs on our young miss? Yu Jing was a little angry when she heard this. Calm down. Shui isn't that easy to get your hands on. But, why are you here? Shuang asked curiously. We were originally at the Yen residence, but we heard that the young lady and the Yen clan's old master were captured by the Hong clan. The Yen clan had no intention of saving the old master, so we came over. Ziyu and Bai Xian are still at the Yen residence. Yu Qing explained. Oh. You're saying that the Yen clan doesn't intend to save their lord? Leng Ruoxue asked in shock. It seemed like the Yen clan was quite decisive in their actions. That old master of the Yen clan was indeed not worth saving. Yes, the second master of the Yen family said it himself. Yu Jing said. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, Shui. Since the Yen family has decided to give up on their master, do you think we should tell this news to Master Hong? They've treated us with good food and drinks, so we should return the favor, right? Shuang said with a smile as he thought of an evil idea. If the Hong family finds out about this, the father and daughter will definitely not have a good life. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she reminded him. This has nothing to do with us. Isn't it good for them to fight each other? At that time, we'll be like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, and wipe out both of them. Snow Shadow suggested. No, the Yen clan is a dark clan. If we offend them, we will be in deep trouble. Jiang Qin said. Xiang stopped him. What are you afraid of? Isn't it just a dark clan? There are so many of us here, do we need to be afraid of them? Yu Qing said disapprovingly. Dark clan? What is this? Leng Ruoxue was bewildered. She only knew that there were 8 god domains in the god world, and that they were the top forces in the god world. As for the Dark Clan, this was the first time she had heard of it. The Dark Clan in the divine world refers to the clans that keep a low profile, but their methods are quite ruthless. Their identity and actions are extremely mysterious, and they are not exposed to the public like the 8 great divine domains or the beast clans. In other words, they are people who walk in the dark world, but they also have businesses on the surface, hidden among many forces. If they don't say it themselves, no one will know that they are a member of the Dark Clan. Xiang explained. Oh. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head. It seemed like the Yen clan was part of the underworld. However, no matter how terrifying the Yen family's underhanded methods were, it was impossible for those who provoked her not to pay the price. Young lady, the people of the divine world won't easily offend the people of the Dark Clan, because once they do, it means that they will have to suffer their endless revenge. Xiang couldn't help but add. If the Yen clan is a dark clan, and the Dark Clan is as powerful as you said, why doesn't the Yen clan have much of a reaction when the Hong clan is bullying them? Leng Ruoxue could not understand. This. I'm not sure. Xiang said gloomily. Isn't it obvious? The Hong clan and the Yen clan are evenly matched, perhaps even stronger. Otherwise, why would the Yen clan swallow their anger? The demon said with an understanding look. It's also possible that the Hong family is one of the dark families. Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she added. Yes. The demon nodded in agreement. Miss, what should we do now? Yu Qing couldn't help but ask. Find a suitable opportunity to leak the news that the Yen clan is planning to give up on the Yen clan's eldest master. At that time, we can just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. Hee. Leave this matter to me. Snow Shadow said with a smile. Just as he finished speaking, he disappeared with a whoosh. Ah. This guy is really fast. Xiang wiped the cold sweat off her forehead. It's been holding back for a while, so it naturally has to make good use of such an opportunity. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. The next day, rumors spread in Hong City, and naturally, some people in the Hong family heard it. In Master Hong's study, a man sat behind the desk with a heavy expression as he listened to the butler's report. After a long while, he asked, "Is this news true?" "Family head, the people we sent to Yen City have yet to return." "This news came from Yen City, so in my opinion, it's most likely true." The butler thought for a moment before he spoke in a very cautious manner. "Butler, what do you think I should do?" the man asked after thinking for a while. "Master, I'm just a butler. You have to make the decision for such a big matter," the butler said with fear and trepidation. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions for me, I'm just asking you to share your thoughts," the man helplessly reminded. "Clan head, this subordinate feels that since the Yen clan has decided to give up on the Yen clan's eldest master, then we don't have to be polite to the father and daughter. Or, we might as well directly attack the Yen clan. Last time, Clan head Yen was injured by the Great Elder, and I'm sure your injuries have not yet recovered." The butler thought for a moment and said, "I also want to kill my way into the Yen family, but the Great Elder might not agree. If I wasn't in danger last time, that old thing wouldn't have made a move." Although he was the head of the Hong family, the Great Elder's status in the family was higher than his. This had always made him feel uncomfortable. However, the Great Elder's strength was above his, so even if he wanted to use his strength to force the Great Elder to lower his head, it was impossible. "I think we can keep it a secret from the Great Elder. The patriarch of the Yen family is currently injured and definitely isn't his match. If we miss this rare opportunity, it will be difficult to deal with the Yen clan once they recover," the butler reminded. "That's good. Go and find the other elders now. Remember, don't alert the Great Elder." The man thought for a moment and cautiously reminded. "This subordinate understands." The butler nodded carefully and left the study. After the elders of the Hong family were secretly invited, they had no choice but to agree to the master's plan under the coercion and temptation of the master of the Hong family. After that, the master of the Hong family sent someone to invite Leng Ruoxue and the others. On the way to Yen City, Master Hong was afraid that Leng Ruoxue would not be used to riding beasts, so he specially found a luxurious beast carriage for her to sit in. Yu Qing and Xiang were her maidservants, so they naturally accompanied her. As for the demon and Shuang, they did not receive such treatment. "Miss, what is this master of the Hong family doing?" Xiang Er's face was filled with confusion. If their Hong family wanted to go to the Yen family to find trouble, why did they have to drag them along? They didn't say they were going. "He's not playing tricks, he's looking for death," Yu Qing said with some schadenfreude. She could feel the cold air behind the car that made people shiver. She didn't believe that the Hong family head wouldn't notice it at all. "Yes, that's right. You're looking for death." Xiang agreed with Yu Qing's words. "AI." Leng Ruoxue looked at the two excited beauties in front of her and felt helpless. She really did not know what the two of them were excited about. Chapter 1330, Being Framed, 1. Actually, according to Leng Ruoxue's original intention, she didn't want to sit in the beast-drawn carriage. However, the demon was afraid that she would tire herself out, so he forcefully pushed her in. He then followed behind the carriage and sulked, causing her to feel as though she was sitting on pins and needles. Sob. She wasn't that delicate. The beast-drawn carriage was moving very slowly and steadily. The demon and Shuang followed behind the carriage and walked slowly as well. However, Shuang did not dare to get within 3 feet of the demon because the demon's entire body was emitting a cold air that made one's heart palpitate, causing one to shiver. "Why are you so far away from me?" His devilish black eyes glanced at the snow figure not far away and said with slight displeasure. "I'm cold." Shuang shook the long fur on his body and said with a face full of fear. "Cold? Come over. I'll help you warm up." The demon said ambiguously. Ah. No need. When Snow Shadow heard the demon's words, he was so scared that he hid even further away. Are you coming over? The demon saw that Shuang wasn't cooperating and asked indifferently with his half-squinted eyes. Woo. Don't scare me. I'll go over. Shuang said shamelessly. He kept consoling himself in his heart. You can't blame me for this. This man was giving it too much pressure. It's all that damned head of the Hong family's fault. Why did you have to be so attentive for no reason? He had also implicated it. After saying that, Shuang slowly walked to the side of the demon with small steps. The demon hugged Snow Shadow's huge body and deliberately said, You're not cold anymore, are you? I'm not cold. That. If you want to vent your anger, go and kill that master of the Hong family. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You must not vent your anger on me. Shuang said carefully. Don't worry. I won't vent my anger on you. The demon gritted his teeth and subconsciously clenched the soft long hair on Snow Shadow's body. Then what are you doing now? Woo, it's fur. Shuang was wailing in his heart, and he kept complaining. However, he didn't dare to say these words out loud. He could only grit his teeth and bear with it, because a jealous man was unreasonable. And at this moment, that woman who didn't know what was good for her came over to court death. Looking at the Hong sisters who were slowly approaching, Shuang was gloating in his heart, because he was very clear that the people this evil-looking man didn't want to see the most were probably the Hong family members, but these two sisters didn't seem to notice at all. Woo! It could also be said that she was completely infatuated with the handsome man, so she automatically ignored this kind of disgust. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL. After the two shy sisters arrived in front of the evildoer, their charming faces were dyed with a layer of red. When Shuang saw this, he felt his hair stand on end and goosebumps appear on his body. Oh my God! Did these two women have to be so exaggerated? Was there a need to blush? It's not like she's never seen a man before. It should be known that the thing it couldn't stand the most was women who blushed at the sight of men, as if they were innocent and shy. In fact, many of these women were deliberately acting. Unfortunately, some men liked this. However, it was very sure that the man in front of it definitely did not like it, so their efforts were in vain. Furthermore, wasn't it said that eldest Miss Hong liked fifth young Master Yen? Since that's the case, why are you so embarrassed when you see other men? She was really a woman who looked pure on the outside but was promiscuous on the inside. Shuang thought to himself in disdain. Young master, we're preparing to rest and make lunch. What do you want to eat for lunch? Hong Lian asked softly, her voice was so gentle that it seemed like water could drip out. Young master. Hearing these two words, Shuang laughed wildly in his heart. The current scene seemed to be a maidservant asking her young master what he was going to eat for lunch. Hee hee. In fact, the Hong sisters did not know the name of the devilish man beside it, so they could only address him as young master. However, such a form of address, coupled with the Hong sisters' shyness and attentiveness, made them look like maidservants. My young master can eat anything he wants. However, he really wants to know how long it will take to reach the destination at this speed. Seeing that the evildoer had no intention of paying attention to the Hong sisters, Shuang took the initiative to reply on his behalf. I think we'll be there in 2 days. Hong Lian chuckled and replied. Oh. But I heard that Yen City is less than 2 days away from Hong City. Why are you guys so slow? Shuang glanced at the head of the Hong family, who had already gotten down from his mount, and asked, pretending to be puzzled. From its point of view, the Hong family wasn't planning on challenging the dojo at all. It was more like they were going on an outing. Otherwise, why would he bring his family along to cause trouble? It would be fine if the family was strong, but one of them was weak and sickly, as if he would fall with a gust of wind, and the other was also a big-breasted, brainless idiot who only had men in his eyes. Bringing these two women along with him would only be a waste of time. We have more people, so of course we have to walk slower. Moreover, we have to take care of you people who don't have mounts, so we naturally can't walk faster. Hong Xian said matter-of-factly. In fact, she did not hear the sarcasm in Shui Ying's words. Otherwise, she would have been depressed. Oh. Then we have to thank you for your care. Shui Ying said with a faint smile. There's no need for a verbal thanks. If you really want to thank me, then be my contracted beast. Hong Xian shamelessly requested. I have a master. Shui Ying wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said in a speechless manner. This Miss Hong was really not an ordinary brainless person, was she? This kind of request was actually said so naturally. Could it be that she really thought that she was in high demand, that just because she was a beastie, she wanted to be her contracted beast? You can take the initiative to cancel the master-slave contract. This way, we can change owners. Hong thought, How could she not know that this fox had a master? If she didn't know that it had an owner, she would have ordered people to capture it and force it to sign a contract. Unfortunately, there was no way to use force on a beastie that had an owner. Beastie can take the initiative to break the master-slave contract. How come I didn't know about it? Snow Shadow's face was full of surprise and puzzlement. He had lived for so long, but he had never heard of a master-slave contract being terminated by a beastie. If that was the case, would it still be called a forced contract? You can ask your master to remove it. Hong Xian warned. If master listens to everything I say, would you still be called master? Snow Shadow asked with a smile. Chapter 1331, Being Framed, 2, If she doesn't listen, I'll kill her. At that time, your contract can still be terminated. Hong Xian said in an overbearing manner. Miss Lu, if you kill my master, I will die as well. Shui Ying rolled his eyes and said helplessly, sigh. This woman really didn't have much common sense. All the beasts knew that after signing a master-slave contract, if the master died, the beasts would also die. I see. Then I'll force your master to break your master-servant contract. Hong Xian thought and said. If you have the ability, then go ahead. Shui Ying said in an unpleasant tone. You will definitely be mine. Hong Xian said confidently. I'm looking forward to it. Shui Ying was too lazy to respond to Hong Xian. After saying these few words, he didn't say anything else. Shui Ying did not say anything, and the demon did not even bother to look at the two sisters. The two sisters stood there like fools for a while, then left embarrassedly. If they did not leave, everyone's attention would be attracted to them. However, as they left, the two of them could not help but secretly complain about the demon's lack of romantic feelings. What do you think they'll do next? Snow Shadow said, as if he was waiting to watch a good show. Hee. Although on the way to Yen City, there was a time bomb that could explode at any time, it was quite interesting to watch the two sisters fight for a husband. You'll have to ask them. The demon said coldly, the cold chi on his body growing thicker. But, it seems that there are more than two women who are interested in you. As Shui Ying spoke, he also stole a glance at Yen Ling, who was in the prison carriage not far away from them. The father and daughter of the Yen family were currently locked in the prison carriage that was filled with slaves, and the possibility of escape was zero. Their subordinates were also tied up and slowly following behind the carriage. So what? The demon lifted his eyelids and asked indifferently. Will they start a fight? Shui Ying's face was filled with curiosity. I don't know, the demon said with a lack of interest. After he finished speaking, he left Shui Ying behind and walked towards Leng Ruoxu's beast-drawn carriage. He lifted the curtain and entered. Hee. This man finally couldn't take it anymore. He clearly didn't want Shui to sit in that car, but he still pretended to be generous. Sigh. Wasn't it tiring? Shui Ying looked at the back of the demon and muttered to himself. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL, however, it didn't follow them. Instead, It quietly walked to Hong Xin's side and said something to her. Then, it saw Hong Xian angrily walking towards Yan Ling Er's prisoner carriage. Not long after, Yan Ling Er's howls and curses were heard, but they were ignored by everyone present. The evildoer who had just entered the beast carriage was about to say a few words to Shui, when a woman's painful howl came from outside. He frowned and felt a little resentful that the voice came at the wrong time and disturbed his time with Shui. What's going on outside? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. This voice should be Yan Ling Er's, but why was she screaming so miserably? I don't know. There's no need to care about those irrelevant things. The demon pulled Shui into his arms and said indifferently. Yu Qing and Xiang who were originally in the carriage, left the moment they saw the evildoer enter. Otherwise, Leng Ruoxue would not have allowed the evildoer to do whatever he wanted. However, in the car, the most he could do was hug her. Oh. The team has stopped. Leng Ruoxue asked again. Yes, he said he wanted to rest and prepare lunch. The demon said, a little speechless. Ah. They really know how to enjoy themselves. Leng Ruoxue didn't know what to say. She didn't seem to have walked much in the morning. Why are you resting so soon? Yup. By the time they arrive at the Yen clan would have received the news and made preparations. The demon laughed evilly. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Previously, she had specially asked Yu Qing to secretly return to Yen City and leak the news. The Yen clan should be making preparations by now. At this moment, the voice of the Hong family's master suddenly rang in their ears. They looked at each other and saw the impatience in each other's eyes. Master Hong, what's the matter? Leng Ruoxue and the demon opened the curtains and walked out unwillingly. Young Miss Leng, I've ordered my subordinates to prepare lunch. Let's eat together. The master of the Hong family smiled very affably. Although the man in front of him was an eyesore, he couldn't show it because of his demeanor. Thank you, Master Hong. However, I've already asked the maidservants to prepare the food, so we won't be eating with you. Leng Ruoxue declined. All right then. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the master of the Hong family did not force her. He nodded his head slightly and turned to leave. Miss, the food is ready. Yu Qing, who had been paying attention to their movements, suddenly shouted. Then, he took out a table from his storage ring and placed the food on it. Yes. Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she walked to the table and pulled the evildoer to sit down with her. Yu Qing, Xiang, and Shuang sat down beside them. Shui, I feel a very unfriendly gaze. Oh. Not just one, at least two, at most three. Shuang smiled as he spoke in a tongue-twister-like manner. Can't you stuff your mouth with food? Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at Shuang and said helplessly. Hee. I'm just reminding you to be careful. Shuang chuckled, his face clearly showing that he wanted to watch a good show. Don't you think you're too free? Do you want me to cancel the master-servant contract between us and throw you to that Miss Lu? Leng Ruoxue raised her brows slightly and teased. She had heard everything they had said outside, so she naturally knew how Shuang had replied. I'm in the wrong, all right. Shuang said with a face full of fear, and secretly made up his mind. If Shui really threw him to Hong Xian, then he would go all out and kill that woman, It can do it. It wasn't a kind fox to begin with. Chapter 1332, Being Framed, 3, It's a great virtue to know one's mistake and change for the better. However, you have to tell me, what did you say to Hong Xian just now? Why did she turn around and look for trouble with Yan Ling her? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Shui, curiosity killed the cat. Snow Shadow reminded. I'm not a cat, so I'm not afraid. Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. That's good. Then I'll tell you. Actually, I didn't say anything. However, When she told Hong Xian that Yen Ling was also having ideas about someone, she exploded in anger. So, Yen Ling was unlucky. Shua, I've taken revenge for you. Shuang said with a fawning expression. Why don't you tell Hong Xian that Hong Lian is also thinking about the demon? Leng Ruoxue asked out of curiosity. TSK. Even if I told her, Hong Xian wouldn't believe me, unless she sees the truth with her own eyes. Shuang said in understanding, and his gaze involuntarily turned to the demon. Don't even think about it, I can't be bothered to put on an act with them. The demon warned coldly. Hee hee. How would I dare to have any ideas about you? I just want to borrow the beastie that can set up illusions from Shua, Shuang quickly clarified. You said confusion. Leng Ruoxue asked in surprise. It seemed like Shuang was quite familiar with her beastie. Yes, lend it to me. Snow Shadow requested. All right then. Leng Ruoxue nodded. With a thought, she took out a small, snow-white snake from her bracelet. Master. The moment the charm appeared, it took the initiative to climb onto Leng Ruoxue's wrist. Hey. You little snake, why do you only have eyes for your master? Don't tell me you didn't see us. Seeing that he had been ignored, Shuang could not help but say with some envy and jealousy. Shouldn't a beastie only have its master in its eyes? Hua said matter-of-factly. Ah. All right. You're right. But you can't just ignore the rest of us. You should at least inform us. Shuang said, somewhat unconvinced. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL.com, you're not even human. Hua mumbled softly, then buried his head under his body, ignoring the bored fox. Ha ha ha. Seeing Shui Ying's depressed expression, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but smile happily. Her spiritual beasts were really too cute. Shua, your beastie is too good at bullying people. Snow Shadow accused. You're not a human, you're a fox. Leng Ruoxue mimicked the tone of confusion. Ha ha ha. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Yu Qing and Xiang couldn't help but chuckle softly, while Shuang was even more depressed. Burying his head in his food, Shuang was so depressed that he didn't want to bother with bad people like Leng Ruoxue. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue took the initiative to place the bewitching god on Shui Ying's claws and said, take it and play. You're the one who let me play with this. Shuang raised his head and said excitedly. There was no trace of gloominess on his face. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head helplessly. After lunch, the group from the Hong family continued on their way. In the evening, they specially found a spacious area to set up their tents. Master Hong wanted to help Leng Ruoxue and the others set up their tents as well, but he was rejected. After dinner, Leng Ruoxue brought the evildoer, Yu Qing and Xiang into the bracelet to rest while Shuang sneaked out of the tent. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had just left the tent when they felt that the atmosphere was not right. However, she did not think too much about it. Miss Leng, can I have a word with you? Just as Leng Ruoxue was about to eat her breakfast, Master Hong walked over with a serious expression. Master Hong, if you have anything to say, just say it. They're not outsiders. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. I want to talk to you in private. The head of the Hong family said. Ah. Leng Ruoxue glanced at the evildoer. Seeing that he did not object, she nodded her head unwillingly. Following that, she followed behind Master Hong. Watching them walk away, Yu Qing couldn't help but worry, that guy wouldn't have any bad intentions towards young miss, right? What can't you say in front of us, why must you say it in private? Humph. He definitely doesn't have any good intentions. Don't talk nonsense. Maybe that Master Hong really has something to discuss with our young miss. Can't you see how cautious he is? Xiang sneaked a glance at the evildoer and pulled Yu Qing's sleeve as she reminded him. Ah. That's true. If he dares to have any ill intentions towards Miss, then he'll definitely be the unlucky one. Yu Qing hurriedly said, her heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Who? That was close. Fortunately Xiang reminded her, otherwise, if she continued to speak, Leader Yi would definitely fly into a rage. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue had followed Master Hong out of the line of sight. Seeing that he had no intention of stopping, she said directly, Hong family head, are you planning to walk back to Hong City? If you have anything to say it here. All right. The master of the Hong family nodded and said awkwardly. In fact, he just wanted to stay away from his family's team, but he didn't expect to walk so far by accident. Miss Leng, didn't you hear anything last night? The head of the Hong family couldn't help asking. Should I have heard something? I'm sorry, I slept too deeply last night and didn't hear anything. However, does this have anything to do with what the Hong family's head is talking about? Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with bewilderment. She was extremely annoyed by the master of the Hong family's nonsense. Last night, the man beside you seduced my two daughters and caused them to turn against each other. Shouldn't Miss Leng give me an explanation for this matter? The master of the Hong family took a deep breath and said with some difficulty. Master Hong, do you know what you're saying? He was with me the entire time yesterday. How could he have the chance to seduce your daughter? Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly as she retorted, Humph. It wasn't the first or second day that the Hong sisters had been coveting the evildoer, so why would they need to specially seduce him? If she didn't seduce him, she would probably take the initiative to pounce on him. Miss Leng, are you sure? There's no man who doesn't like to play around. Maybe he sneaked out while you were asleep, so you didn't know. The head of the Hong family reminded. Master Hong, I know my man better than anyone else. He would never do such a thing. If you want to sow discord, I'm afraid you found the wrong person. Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with mockery. Chapter 1333, Being Framed, 4, Miss Leng, please don't be angry. He was indeed the one who did something good yesterday. We all saw it. The head of the Hong family said with a pained expression. Actually, his words were indeed trying to sow discord. However, for the sake of the three of them, he had no choice but to say these words. However, he didn't want Leng Ruoxue to misunderstand him. Otherwise, it would be counterproductive. Master Hong, you said he did a good thing. He also said that you all saw it. Then can you tell me what good things he has done? Leng Ruoxue asked a little impatiently. This man had been talking for a long time, but he still did not get to the point. Her patience was running out. Last night, my eldest daughter, Lian was seen by my youngest daughter, Xian when they were confessing their feelings to each other. Therefore, the two of them have completely fallen out because of this man. The head of the Hong family said helplessly. What does that have to do with me? Leng Ruoxue couldn't understand. Hong Xiner had seen your eldest daughter and the evildoer expressing their love for each other. That was a matter between your daughters, it shouldn't be her fault. Therefore, she really couldn't understand why the head of the Hong family had come to find her. Miss Leng, is he not your man? Your man is having an affair with another woman behind your back, can you bear it? The master of the Hong family reminded her with a face full of righteous indignation. Actually, what he said was a little exaggerated. Last night, it wasn't Lian and that devilish man who were confessing their feelings to each other. It was a confession to the man, and Xian happened to see it. Xian immediately made a fuss and made it known to everyone. The man took the opportunity to slip away, causing him to be unable to find anyone to settle the score with. He had endured it with great difficulty until the morning before he impatiently went to find Leng Ruoxue. Master Hong, aren't you exaggerating a little too much? Even a fool can tell that your two daughters like my man, but I'm sure you're well aware of my man's attitude towards them. How could they possibly confide in each other? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Miss Leng, men always like to act one way in front of others and another way behind their backs. Maybe he did it on purpose for you to see. In fact, he has an improper relationship with my two daughters. The head of the Hong family said. Leng Ruoxua laughed when she heard Master Hong's words. She was speechless as she said, "It seems like Master Hong really wants my man to be related to your two daughters. This is the first time I've seen a father who slanders his own daughter. Miss Leng, you've misunderstood me. It's absolutely true that the man beside you has a relationship with my daughter. Don't be fooled by him again." The head of the Hong family said with a face full of disappointment, but in his heart, he couldn't help but sigh. Was he overreaching himself? "Master Hong, I'm clear whether my man is related to your two daughters or not. I think you also know whether what happened last night was true or not. Therefore, I don't want to hear such words anymore, otherwise, I can't guarantee what I will do," Leng Ruoxua warned. The coldness in her words caused Master Hong's heart to tremble. With that, Leng Ruoxua turned around and left. Looking at Leng Ruoxua's back, Master Hong was extremely vexed. How could this be? Shouldn't women be angry and jealous when they hear such things? Why was this woman's reaction so different? He could not understand. Originally, he had wanted to use last night's incident to cause a rift between them so that he could take advantage of it. But who knew that not only did he not achieve the effect he wanted, but he had also overreached himself? How did this happen? No. He had to make that man take responsibility for his daughter. Otherwise, he would not be able to get what he wanted. Thinking of this, he turned around and walked back. When he returned to the group, he saw Leng Ruoxua and that devilish man sitting under the shade of a tree acting lovey-dovey while his two daughters each stood in a corner, glaring at the two of them with hidden bitterness. You are reading on MYBOXN0VEL. Calm when he saw this, he walked up without hesitation and asked angrily, "What did you do to my daughter yesterday? You've caused them to almost die, so you have to give me an explanation." This time, he was speaking directly to the evildoer. The evildoer, who was talking to Leng Ruoxua, was confused by Master Hong's sudden words. He raised his head and glanced at Master Hong, then at the two daughters of the Hong family. He then said in an extremely cold tone, "What did I do to them? Weren't they living well? How is it dying? You still dare to deny it? You're the one who seduced my two daughters, and now you're denying it. Are you even a man?" The master of the Hong family was so angry that his face turned red and he roared in anger. When Leng Ruoxua saw the look on Master Hong's face, she sighed speechlessly and thought to herself, "Sigh. This Hong family's main lead was addicted to acting." Seeing that she didn't believe his words, he directly found the evildoer. This time, he was the one looking for death. Initially, when Leng Ruoxua returned, she did not tell the demon about what the master of the Hong family had told her. She was afraid that the demon would be so angry that he would want to exterminate the entire Hong family. She wanted to watch a good show, so she kept it a secret. Who knew that the master of the Hong family would court death and send himself to the muzzle of the gun? Sigh. Good luck. A demon's temper wasn't very good when dealing with irrelevant people. I seduced your two daughters. Are they worth seducing? The demon said with a face full of disdain, his eyes full of ridicule and contempt. You want to renege on your debt? I'm telling you. You can't just do whatever you want to my Hong family's daughter. You have to be responsible for them, or else I won't let you off. The head of the Hong family threatened. Really a joke? What responsibility do I have to take for them? They're not anyone to me. Are you delusional? If you're afraid that your daughters can't get married, then don't be too picky. Just find a beggar for them to marry off. The evildoer said viciously. In other words, he was saying that his daughter was only fit to marry a beggar. Then, the demon asked with a curious smile, "What do you want to do to me?" Master Hong was so angry that he couldn't speak. On the other hand, Leng Ruoxua couldn't help but laugh in her heart. The mouth of the evildoer was really poisonous. In comparison, she was still considered gentle. At least, she didn't ask the head of the Hong family to marry his daughter to a beggar. However, beggars didn't seem to be common in the immortal realm. I'm afraid that these two daughters can't be married off.